That's most definitely what's up.
Death to all of them.
Shout out to the chess club. But something's wrong with the game. We're aiming for a controversial 7 out of 10.
That's most definitely what's up.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another day of gaming talking about, as it were. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing good? Everybody feeling lively? Hopefully you are. I'm just here chilling. I'm here vibing. I just saw a new story. Do you guys know the old saying with regards to like criminals, crime, whatever, where they're like, they don't catch the smart ones? You know that saying? They don't catch the smart ones. Well, there's a ship. You guys know me. I mean, I literally have the Titanic behind me. One of my like guilty pleasures is ship stuff. This book right here is on the Lusitania. Like, I love big boats and ships and stuff. It's one of my secondary obsessions beyond just video games. But there is a classic ship that was at one time the fastest in the world. I think it's the fastest ocean liner ever, called the SS United States. And this is it today. It's actually quite sad how dilapidated it is, but it still is afloat. It's just docked and moored, and it's just sitting there. But it's been like this for decades. And some of the most like famous and wealthy people in history of the last century have ridden on this ship. It's iconic. Okay. Well, they just announced they're going to be taking it into, I believe, someplace in Florida, and it will be sunk and turned into an artificial reef, which is kind of a cool way for it to live on. They do this with a bunch of ships where they intentionally sink it, and then it turns into a place for local fish and things to live, and then divers can typically go down and explore the ship once more, but it's frankly cheaper than if they keep this thing floating here and whatever. But you might be like, Luke, well, why are you saying they only catch the dumb ones? They don't catch the smart ones. Well, because a few days after they announced this, just like 3-4 days after, somebody broke onto the ship and stole a bunch of stuff. They just vandalized it, went in there and stole a bunch of stuff and broke a bunch of stuff, which on the one hand, it's like it's going to be sunk, whatever. But also like, really? Is that what we're doing? Well, you might think, well, what are they going to do? It's like an old abandoned ship. How on earth are they going to catch these people that did this? Well, what is the stupidest thing you could do if you were planning on vandalizing a ship or stealing something from it? What's the most insane, stupid thing you could do? Document the whole thing on social media. Which is what they did. These guys went on and posted all their photos of them walking the ship, of them actively stealing stuff from the ship, of them selling some of the stuff they stole off the ship. Because some of it was like, my understanding is some of it was like tools and stuff, like modern tools that the people that have been working on the ship had left there and had locked up and stuff, and they just stole those tools. And so they did all that, and of course they posted all of it to social media because, again, they don't catch the smart ones, they catch the stupid ones. So a little funny. But yeah, little ship related random news for you. I just, it's a little mind blowing, but there it is. This whole thing's going to be sunk. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? It's a big ship, but it's not like, this is the one thing where people think of the Titanic in their mind and they're like, well, at the time that was like one of the biggest ships in the world with its sister ship Olympic and everything. But when you look at them compared to modern day ships, like they were tiny. Have you guys ever seen the side-by-sides of like the Titanic versus Icon of the Seas? We can pull this one up. Let's see if these side-by-sides kind of explain it. Like, not even close. Okay, like Icon of the Seas is basically a floating city, like with entire water parks and stuff on it. You know, these ships are ridiculously huge. It's the whole of the Titanic, and then these modern cruise ships are just twice as wide, 3 times as tall. Like, they're insane. They're just ridiculously huge. So yeah, it's, again, random ship information, but make of that what you will. And I guess the lesson to be learned is, if you're going to vandalize a ship or break in and burglarize it, don't post pictures of it on social media. Like, why? What are you doing? Man. People are sick for clout. Good luck in prison. Well, dude, it's like the freaking, everybody saw it. The Jack whatever Doherty kid who was driving his like brand new McLaren and is texting and driving. I think he was technically reading chat, but he's on his phone while it's pouring rain and he's in a sports car, which already sports cars are not designed for like heavy rain to begin with. Like, they're designed typically for track conditions. So just don't do that. But he's like scrolling on social media as he's driving 70 miles an hour in the rain, and he hydroplanes and crashes it. And his friend's head is torn open and he's bleeding profusely. And instead of checking on his friend to see if he's okay, he hands him the camera and says, "Here, film me. Get this. Because it's all clout." It's like the most brain dead stuff ever. Amazingly enough, though, he's been banned off of Kick. Heartbreaking. Breaking news, guys. Oh my god. Found alive. Yeah, this is the clip. Oh, this is copyrighted music. But like, if it's raining like this, for one, if you're in a low riding car that has bad tires, not like all weather tires, slow the hell down. But he's going to actually crank it up and then he loses control. Hydroplanes. He's trying to race around the pickup truck to like flex on him, I guess. So he's going to speed up. So they, of course, there's a cut there. Like, people hopped out of their cars to come and rip open the doors and help him. But pretty intense crash. His friend is like extremely bloodied. Like, not okay. And all he can talk about is his car.
My whole...
My
bro,
car.
my whole fucking car, bro.
My car, bro. Bro, my car. No cap. Finna bussin'. Like, unbelievable. And then, like, I'm not joking. Like, see, he hands the camera to his friend who is quite injured and just has him film him while he, like, walks around the car. Oh no, man, my car. Because he's probably thinking this is going to get tons of views. This is super clout. Yeah, hell yeah. But then Kick, like, perma-banned him, which, good on them at least. I mean, there's that. I don't know where he goes now. Yeah, I mean, that's, like, the problem with modern streaming, like IRL streaming especially, is that it incentivizes straight up, like, sociopathy, like psychopathy. People who have no social awareness or don't care are rewarded. And that's why you get people like this, where he will go and, like, actively get into fights with people and then have his bodyguards fight them on his behalf. And it's just like, in any other profession, even in the entertainment industry, that would just be like your career's over. But when you're streaming IRL on Kick, that's easy money. That's clout. It's crazy. Yeah, Kick is on another level. But this happened. He was on his phone while it happened, so he's at fault. It's possible his insurance won't even cover this, which is pretty hilarious. And beyond that, Kick booted him, and so now he doesn't really have an infrastructure for doing any of this. But one thing this little turd nugget has been doing for money is he apparently has, like, a whole suite of young girls, like 18, 19-year-old girls, that he gets to go on OnlyFans in, like, one of the mansions that he rents and lives in, and then he takes a cut of it. It's literally like the same thing that Andrew Tate was accused of doing, is what he's doing, where it seems as though he's basically pimping out young girls for OnlyFans, and then he takes a cut of all of it in exchange for doing the paperwork and stuff. It's insane. Like, how any of this is allowed is crazy. Like, his whole audience is probably 10 years old, but still, like, the fact that is tolerable is insane. Man. Anyway, so yeah, enough of that. Enough of that. Let's see. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff to run through today, surprisingly enough. But where was this? Have any of you guys tried the new iPhone, by the way? Have any of you guys tried that? I did, because I bought my iPhone outright like 3 years ago or whatever, and so every year I typically just upgrade, do the full value trade in, and it's not particularly expensive. When you own the phone outright and then you trade it in, because they inflate the trade-in values on launch week so that it looks like they're selling more than they normally would. So you can usually get some solid returns, but this thing is like such a joke, dude. I'm returning it, and it pissed me off so bad I've considered swapping fully to Android. It's just, it's kind of amazing how uninspired these products have gotten. Like, they are running worse than ever before. The voice to speech stuff alone is insanely bad. Like, on iPhone, you try to do a voice to text, or you try to document something or take a note, or like, as you guys know, I run a D&D campaign for my friends, and one of the ways that I do that is I kind of verbally vomit all of the things and ideas I have, entire paragraphs of stuff. Same thing with videos and critiques and stuff when I'm scripting them and trying to work out the outlines. And I can't do it on the iPhone, a flagship product, because the voice to text is so bad. Like, it's so bad. Whereas on like the S24 Ultra with the Google keyboard or whatever, it works amazingly well. It punctuates it properly. I can even say like a made up word. Like in our campaign, there's a vampire guy named Lord Atanosva. And I can just pronounce it Atanosva, and the Google voice to text thing will spell it correctly and put it in, no problem. Whereas or like that keyboard, it learns the unique spelling of your friends. If you have a friend whose name is Jeff, but it's not Jeff, it's the Jeff Keighley spelling, it's Geoff, whatever. It will learn that if you correct it once. And then every time you refer to him, it'll spell it correctly. On this, you say Atanasva, and it's like at and like Tesla. Like it will just totally get it wrong very confidently, and it will never learn from you correcting it, which is infuriating. Like this is supposed to be one of the best phones on the market. Same with this. This is supposed to be the newest, best phone on the market, and it is painfully lackluster. It's ridiculous. It's just like the fact that if I want to do something, like take a note for what I'm talking about, the fact that I would rather walk all the way down here to the studio, grab the other phone that's my work phone, and use that instead of just doing it here on my flagship, very expensive cell phone. Like that's crazy. That's ridiculous. So I don't know. I'm looking at doing the dual SIM thing, like taking the phone number that's in this phone and then putting it into that phone and just using that phone with dual SIMs. Because man, AI, the Apple AI stuff isn't even, or I guess rather they call it Apple Intelligence. It's not even on the phone right now. Like you want to see, I have it on the 15 Pro Max. I can go like, what's an example? If I have 3 bushels of apples with 12 each in each bushel, how many apples would I have left if I removed 2 bushels? What? It just turned itself off. Like it won't do anything. Whereas on the Samsung side of things, it already has all of the AI stuff. Like I have the news story from earlier when we were looking at it with the SS United States. If I just hold down the navigate button, I can just like tap on certain words in the article. It'll define them. I can even go down here to like, let's see. There's a picture of the SS United States. I hold it down. I can circle that ship. It'll do Google search and it can tell me what ship it is. SS United States. Just like that. Like way better. Like way better. It's amazing to me. And then there was also this news, which we'll get into the gaming stuff here in just a minute. I'm sorry for everybody indulging me. But Apple apparently is working on moving away from the annual release schedule. And it's because they apparently slashed their production of the iPhone 16 by like 3 million units because people just aren't interested. People are sick and tired of upgrades that aren't really upgrades. And it's all anecdotal, but I swear to God, this thing, just the 15 I have, just so happened to start running slower and the battery started draining ridiculously fast on launch week when they issued the iOS update for this. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Anybody else have that problem too? It's weird. The second the new product is out, the old one starts really struggling to perform well. But they've had lawsuits filed against them for doing this kind of thing. And they say, no, we throttle voltage to slow the phone down to preserve battery life. But it's like, you're still slowing the phone down. Conveniently, at the same time, you're starting to sell the replacement. Like everybody knows. Everybody knows it's a thing. So, yeah, all of that to say, I think Apple is in a tough spot, but this is just what you get when you have somebody like Tim Cook. He's an amazing CEO in many ways, but Tim Cook, his specialty, like he replaced Steve Jobs because Steve Jobs was kind of the nerd, geek, more the artist than the nerd and geek, but he was that guy. He was the visionary. Tim Cook worked in the supply chain at Apple. That's where his specialty was. And he took over for Steve Jobs and has blown Apple up into a I think it's over $1 trillion company. Might be a $2 trillion company. But he's blown up the company to that scale, but it's because of his experience with supply chains. He's good at getting this, like milking dry this poor cow that just doesn't have much milk left in it. And now the cow has finally like shriveled up and is dying, and they've got to figure something else out. And shocker, the Apple Vision Pro didn't really do it. So what else are you going to do? So Apple's at a crossroads. They got to figure their crap out. Because even the AI stuff that's on the phones today is garbage. It doesn't work. And they say more stuff is coming later this fall, but they're selling a product based on the promise that it'll be better in a month. And that's just not something you should ever do. So anyway. Yeah, Steve was the visionary. Well, yeah, he just understood what people wanted before they knew they wanted it. And so he would, like, the idea back before the iPhone, you can, I think we did it on a stream like months ago, but you can find articles in the Wayback Machine from like 2006, 2007, where there were rumors of Apple coming out with a phone that was going to have a touch screen interface. And you were going to have to type on the touch screen instead of on a physical keyboard, which was the standard at the time with like Blackberries and other things. And he was roundly mocked. People said, this is an unnecessary change. Nobody will like typing on a flat piece of glass. Nobody's going to like doing that. It's going to feel bad. People want tactile physical keyboards. That's what they want. You ask them, do you want a keyboard on a screen or do you want a keyboard on like an actual tactile keyboard? And everybody, like 85% of people said, I want a physical keyboard on my phone. But then Steve did it and showed, no, you actually want this. People are like, oh shit, you're right. Like, oh. But that's the point, is he understood what people wanted before they even knew they wanted it. And that's what a visionary does. That's what a visionary is. And that is just something that Apple, I don't know if they, I'm sure they have very talented people. I'm sure they have people in the company that are like that, but there's been no incentive to bring those people up because it's a lot more expensive to release risky products that are groundbreaking and a little weird. It's a lot riskier to do that than just pumping out the next iPhone that has very small changes. You just made it a little bit bigger, so everybody has to buy new cases and new screen protectors. And oh, we also made it so it now is no longer compatible with this other thing that you bought, so you have to go and do that. Like, everybody, again, knows what they're doing. But that's what Tim Cook is good at, but people are just finally fed up with it. So anyway, people being, speaking of people being fed up with it, breaking news story. News segment. I'll read super chats before we do this, but we're going to transition into this. Vice President of Rainbow Six, Cameron Lee, left Ubisoft at the end of last week. At least that's when it was announced. The whole thing, we'll talk about this because there's some interesting information here. Whitest Rabbit, thank you for the 2. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving person. Yeah, I hope insurance doesn't cover the car crash. They shouldn't. He was completely at fault. It was like his mismanagement of the vehicle that got him in that situation. Archer, thank you for that. Hey, Luke, recently discovered your channel, and since then, I eagerly look forward to any videos you release. Your analyses are top-notch. Great work. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. Thank you. Glad to have you. Grandpa Eyebrows, thank you for the 5. Seems like the quality of products across the board in every genre is falling off badly. Companies demanding more and doing the bare minimum. Yeah, and I think it's because I think for a long time, when money was cheap, when credit card rates were low, when everything was built on this buy now, pay later thing, you know, you see it on every website now, the buy now, paid in 4 equal installments at no added interest rates or whatever. All of that allowed people to be really reckless with their money. And now you just, like, times are tough. You can't do that. So people are having to be much more cautious with where they spend their money. And so you're seeing the low effort stuff tank, and high effort stuff will still pop off. And people will still spend 60, 70 bucks on a game that they like or on a product that they like, but you have to earn it. And it feels like so many of these big companies got, like, the approach has been entitlement. They're entitled to your money. they feel like they deserve it, even when they probably don't. And I think a great example is like the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, where some of those character designs, you're like, you put this together actively hating your fan base. Like you knew, there's no way you didn't know. You knew your fan base would not like this direction, but you didn't care because you thought it was going to be successful no matter what. We made Arkham Knight, we made Arkham City. People are going to buy it anyways. They didn't. And that's true in movies. Look at the Joker 2. If you rewound the clocks 2 years and you said Folia Do would release in the same level as, what was it, the Eternals? Other like Marvel level flops of recent memory. If you had said it would be releasing to empty theaters, people would have been like, no way. No way. But it's because they put this movie together and didn't ever stop to ask, what does the audience want out of this? Like, and they never got that far. Madam Web, I think it's performing worse than Morbius. Which I don't know if this movie is on the same memeable level as all that, but who knows? I heard a take the Joker 2 is bad on purpose to anger its edgelord fans. I mean, if that's what they're going for, cool, but don't be surprised when you lose $100 million on it, which they probably will. Yeah. A Warner Brothers superhero flop? No way. Let's just, again, it's amazing that in the modern day, so many of these companies never stop to ask, what do the customers want? Let's give them that. It never comes into the equation. It's amazing, because it's the most basic thing you could possibly do when making any product or any movie or anything. Even when I'm making YouTube videos, I stop and ask, does my audience want to see this? Do they care about this game? Are they interested? Like Metaphor, ReFantazio. I think that game looks amazing. I'm going to play it on my own time. My audience, though, they just don't really connect with JRPGs like that, which is fine. It's not in the cards. So I'm not going to make videos that perform really poorly in that with that game. But if I was taking a page out of the Warner Brothers book, I would spend months working on videos on that and then pour all of the effort, all of my resources into that, and then be shocked when it doesn't perform well. When it's like, well, you could have foreseen that. I prototyped it. It looks so good. Yeah, well, maybe I should clarify. My audience, based on everything I've done and the research and analytics we have, my audience likes to play those games, but watching content on those games is a different thing entirely. Because a lot of games, especially JRPGs, there's a lot of people that like them and are interested in them, but they don't, like the fans, want to play them themselves. They want to experience it themselves with minimal spoilers, so they don't watch outside content on those games. Whereas something you're kind of morbidly curious about, like, oh, is the new Suicide Squad season that bad? Oh, Luke made a video where he tried it. Okay, I'll check that out. That's something more interesting and intriguing, so you'll click on it. Whereas if you really love Final Fantasy VII Remake and then Rebirth is launching, you don't really need to watch a video on it because you're already in it, and you don't want any other spoilers. So it's a different thing. Anyway, all that to say, I think it's just amazing that these companies never stop to ask, do our customers actually want this? And it's the same thing with Joker. It's the same thing with Suicide Squad, all these other flops, Concord. If they ever stop to ask who is going to buy this, they would find out very quickly there is not an audience that's going to buy it. Suicide Squad, who's going to buy it? Not Rocksteady fans. Not looter shooter fans, because it's not a good looter shooter. Not the modern audiences, because they don't buy games. I'm not even sure if that audience even exists. So nobody. Could have been avoided. Which is why I don't have a lot of sympathy for it. It's like, you could have seen this coming. I don't feel that bad. I have not seen Joker 2 myself. No, I have not watched it myself. I'm not sure if I have the strength. Let's see. And then Judson, thank you for the 5. Did you hear about 343's rebrand to Halo Studio? I hope they don't F it up because it's because that's it for them from everyone. Yeah, I do have all those tabs pulled open. We'll look at that here in just a minute. So yeah, I did see that and we'll talk about it. Is market research even a thing anymore? I think for some projects, the big mistake a lot of companies have made is that they assume that certain franchises or projects were too big to fail. They thought if you spent $200 million on a project, it could not fail. We spent $200 million on it. People are going to love this. Even if it's not like that good, they're going to eat it up. It's a high production value video game. People love that. And that was a huge miscalculation, obviously. But what you going to do? Antonio, thank you for subbing with Prime, by the way, over on Twitch. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Okay. Let's talk about this real quick because we pulled it up. News segment. Vice President of Rainbow Six, Cameron Lee, has left Ubisoft. The Vice President of the Rainbow Six franchise, Cameron Lee, has left the franchise and Ubisoft. He joined Rainbow Six's brand in April of 2022 after working as Vice President of Production at Activision, but had previously had over 20 years of experience as a producer, manager, and VP at companies including EA, Bungie, and BioWare, and has worked on such franchises as Tony Hawk, Call of Duty, and Dragon Age. Following the announcement to join the Rainbow Six franchise, Ubisoft said that Lee, quote, will be responsible for creating the long-term brand strategy for the Rainbow Six franchise and aligning and collaborating with all internal partners. Okay. It's unclear why Lee decided to leave the franchise and the company, but an internal email sent to staff reads, quote, for the time being, the role of VP and executive producer for Rainbow Six brand will not be replaced. Interesting. So my question, let me see if I can find his like LinkedIn. My question is if this is a normal thing, like he did the work he needed to do and then bailed, or if this is like a retirement. I'm wondering what this means. Here he is, Vice President Rainbow Six at Ubisoft. He has not updated his LinkedIn, and he doesn't look particularly old. I mean, maybe like late 40s, early 50s. Lead producer, let's see this. He worked at Bajingo, okay. Then Tantalus Games for Pixar and other partners across a range of console and handheld platforms. He was a producer at Transmission Games for 6 months, lead producer at EA for 3 years, led the Melbourne studio producing co-development for Dead Space, Godfather, and other franchises. BioWare he worked at for 4 years. He was a lead producer on Dragon Age and other BioWare titles, oversaw production of large parts of AAA titles, helping shape and execute creative and competitive vision. General manager at Bungie for almost 3 years. I led the transformation of Bungie from its 25 history as a single project studio, Halo, Destiny, into a multi-franchise entertainment company. Which this is funny because like Destiny was the big thing, and then they started working on a second IP that was going to be original. That was canceled a couple of years ago. And then they also were working, of course, on Marathon, which has still yet to come out. So all the work he did there for like 3 years, it seems like at least 33% of it has kind of fallen apart. Vice President of Production at Activision, led a portfolio of franchises across console and PC, spanning numerous genres, platforms, and engagement models, partnering with studio heads, executive producers, and cross-functional teams to drive critical commercial and operational success across the portfolio. And then Ubisoft, the president of Rainbow Six. He was there for 2.5 years. I mean, he was at Activision for 2.5 years. He was at Bungie for like 2.5, almost 3 years. It seems like that's just kind of what he does, that he works on some internal review of stuff for about 2.5 years, and then he moves on to the next project. I know it would be easy to be like, oh, Rainbow's dead. I mean, he came in 2.5 years ago. His LinkedIn suggests that that's just what he generally does. And if he was brought in to like set up a plan for the next 5 to 10 years of what they're going to do with Rainbow, and he did that, he's probably just going to move on to another job where he can get paid to outline another roadmap for a different company. Like, what else is he going to do all day? So honestly, I don't consider this to be like crazy news. This seems to be pretty standard as far as I can tell. Leaving the place vacant, or the role vacant for now, suggests that he did the job he was expected to do and they don't need to hire anybody else to replace him. I don't see this as like, oh, he's really upset with the way things are going. Maybe he is, but I don't see evidence of that based on his previous like work approach, how he leaves shortly after, like 2 to 3 years after getting hired. Again, maybe it does suggest that there's tons of issues and he's really upset with the internal direction. Maybe, but I don't think this has any evidence pointing in that direction personally. Yeah, if they want somebody to replace him, I'll replace him, sure. Give me half of his salary and I will. It's like, can you give us a roadmap? Yeah, let's just let's make like really good games and let's like stop with all this like stupid stuff. Anyway, what else should we do for the next 2 years? Now that we've done that, I will say, I know there's a lot of work that goes into this stuff. It's not as simple as like, we'll just chart out what we're going to do. I do find it funny though, how some of these jobs, you're like the director of monetization, you know, like, what are you doing all day? Are you just deciding how much you're going to charge for each skin? Are you deciding when you're going to release stuff? Are you just like, what do you do all day? You know, there's some jobs like that where I'm just like, what are you even doing? I'm kind of jealous, you know, kind of jealous. But yeah, I know it maybe doesn't fit with the narrative that everything going on with Ubisoft is a total disaster. But this particular thing, I just don't see. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. Like a lot of these types of directors come in for a couple years and then leave. This guy's LinkedIn shows he comes in for a couple years and then leaves. At all these other studios, this just seems to be more of the same. So I don't know, man. Okay, should we talk about this? Boo, 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 boo. Should we talk about the elephant in the room? Should we do that? Zimimaru, thank you for the 5. I got $50 to burn. In your opinion, would it be worth it to buy Ubisoft stock in anticipation to a possible buyout, or would it not matter financially? If you have $50 to burn, the stock's trading at like 15. A potential buyout offer is probably at like $18 or euros rather. Maybe 20, but probably more like 18 would be my guess. You'd basically make 6 to 10 euros. Not bad. What you could also do on the flip side is like, I mean, it's not life-changing money. It's not like you're going to double your money, triple your money, quadruple your money. That's not the kind of thing we're talking about. Whenever you look at any stock, you have to remember, like, if you are aware of something and you're not a professional trader, if you're aware of something, the stock has already priced it in, okay? Like, everybody that was like, oh, I'm going to go big brain, monkey brain on this. Rockstar is about to release GTA 6 next year. So I'm going to buy shares of Take-Two Interactive today, and I'm going to make money next year when the game comes out and is successful. Every other investor has already factored that in. Like, you are years behind. Like, the models they use to value these companies and price them out is like, they're way, way more complex than anything like your gut is telling you. So can you make money on a Ubisoft acquisition if it happens? Yeah. Will it happen? Maybe. It's up in the air right now. But maybe. I think, as I said in the previous videos, I think if Tencent partners with the Guillemot brothers to take it private, I think Tencent will push for a lot of special access and stuff. I think they'll get full rights to all mobile game ports. I think they'll be able to make whatever mobile games they want in the franchises Ubisoft has. I think Tencent will get a lot for bankrolling the operation. And I don't think the Game On brothers like it. So if they have any other option, I think they'd rather that. It's just they're running out of options. So all this to say, I no financial advice or anything. Best case scenario, if you put £50 or €50, whatever, on Ubisoft, you might make 6 to 10 back if there is an acquisition. There's probably better ways to spend that money. You could go and like, I don't know, speculate on the market, you know, trade the VIX, trade futures contracts. You could trade TQQQ, which is like a 3x leveraged instrument that trades on futures contracts for the S&P 500. So typically if the S&P 500 goes up 1%, the TQQQ goes up 3%. So if you think the market's going to do really well tomorrow, you buy the TQQQ today, and then you get 3x returns on the upside tomorrow. On the flip side, if it goes down, you get 3 times the losses, but there's probably other ways you could do it. Yeah, you could also just play roulette. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it's a good option. Or you could donate it to that hurricane relief fund, because in the US, I don't know if you're in the US, but in the US, our like money for disaster relief has all been exhausted this year. So there's like no money going to these victims of the hurricanes in Florida. And apparently there's another one headed there. It's like an actual disaster. It's pretty tragic and heartbreaking. It's unbelievable. It's really bad. So shout out to everybody in Florida. If there's anything we can do to help, let us know. Let's see. Alucard, thing for the 5. You already covered the Alien Isolation sequel announcement. We haven't talked about it, yes, but yeah, they did say they're in early production on it, and that is coming. We will see. I mean, that probably still means 4 or 5 years away, but maybe sooner. You never know. You never know. Thank you for the 5. Blake, thank you for the 10. With 343 rebranding as Halo Studios, do they have the same people in charge of Halo? If not, they're still 343 and no one is going to be fooled by it. Gamers nowadays are pretty in tune with gaming now. Yeah, I mean, I don't... They've done a lot of like restructuring, whatever they'd call it. They'd probably call it reorganizing. Whether that makes a difference or not is an entirely different issue. Which this leads us well into this. Halo moves to Unreal Engine 5 with multiple games in development. What they've been doing the last couple years is apparently exploring. I think they called it an explorative project, where they worked on bringing Halo into Unreal Engine 5 and seeing what they could do with it. This is the little video they posted as part of this big rebrand from 343 to this new studio.
Chris Matthews, take 1. Mark.
This is Casey Wu, take 1. Mark.
I was told that I can just be my authentic self, Chris.
For 6 years, I don't want to be in front of a camera.
There's so much to do and so much fun to be had when you play Halo that I feel like I never run out of things to do.
I love intricate stories that take place across lots of different worlds, have lots of different meaningful characters.
What made Halo successful at the beginning? What is the legacy of Halo, and what's the soul that we want to bring forward, and what's the craft of making Halo games, and how do we set our studio at best to go deliver on that?
We knew we had to make a change in order to take us into the future.
When I first heard about Halo moving to Unreal Engine, my first thought was, this is going to be a really hard secret to keep.
I think fans are going to be excited about the future of Halo because of the possibilities that are afforded us by using Unreal.
Before, we really had to split our focus in thinking about building an engine, supporting it, being really kind of a tech company and a studio at the same time. Since we've made the change to shift to UE, we can bring Halo forward in ways that people have never seen before while still being true to what Halo is.
The founding...
And this is something we are hearing from dozens of studios, right? Like there's so many that are shifting to Unreal Engine or other broadly used engines. And you got to kind of pause and wonder why. And I think there's a couple just plainly obvious things. Yes, they pay licensing costs for the Unreal Engine. Yes, they pay Epic for that. But it is really expensive to develop your own internal engine, keep it up to date, keep it hopefully cutting edge with the competition, and to build it in a way where it can scale across multiple platforms, across multiple different pieces of hardware. It's just a huge headache. And as they just alluded to, where you have to like basically be a tech company developing an engine and then also be a game development company. And a lot of people that are making the games are not engine developers. It's a different skill set to program an engine and tools versus building out levels and writing stories and interesting quests. Like those are two totally different disciplines. And I think what a lot of these companies are realizing is that it's just freaking expensive to try and do both. Back in the day, like 15, 20 years ago, not that big of a deal because your engine could be kind of strapped together with duct tape and hopes and dreams and it was fine. But nowadays, gamers are expecting 4K 60. They expect probably some ray tracing. They expect implementation of AI upscalers. They need implementation of all these crazy quality of life improvements like cloud saves and cross-platform support. And like expectations are way, way higher than they used to be. And so a lot of studios are like, we could do that, or we just let Epic do it. Maybe we just do that. That's probably easier. Let Epic be the tech company that makes the tools, and then we will just do our own thing. And we'll focus on what we're good at, hopefully, which is making games. So I think that's one thing. The other side of this that isn't really talked about a lot is how easy it is to acquire talent when you have sort of common or frequently used familiar tools. So because it lowers the cost of training and stuff. So if you are at CDPR 5 years ago and they needed to hire like a quest designer, they needed to hire some level designers or something, they could go and find somebody fresh out of college, or they could hire somebody from even like Naughty Dog, let's say. They hire them, they come all the way to the studio. They now have to spend 6 months getting familiar with the tool sets and figuring out how to use this engine, the Red engine, when they're used to using Naughty Dog's engine. And there's going to be some stuff that's similar, but then there's other things they're going to have to do differently, and other things where, oh, you did it this way. Well, you actually have to use this scripting system over here. And then once you've done that, you put that into the game here. And once we're ready to compile everything, then we go back through and we rewrite the code by hand so it runs more efficiently. And it's just more and more hoops to jump through and a huge learning curve. Whereas if everybody's using Unreal Engine, you show up day one and you can start working very easily. You know, you worked on like Witcher 4, the next Witcher game, on Unreal Engine 5.5 or whatever they're going to be using. And then you got hired to go and help with the new Halo. You hop on over, same tools, you just hop right in day one, you can start working. That is also a consideration. So there's many, many different things that can help with this. And I think also the promise of Epic right now is with all of these companies that are coming into the fold, that are using their tools, they have the ability to develop cutting edge tools that will help with the new Halo game. But then they're also developing tools with the help of CDPR and their feedback that will help with open world adventure games. And they're developing this stuff that will help with this type of game and that type of game. And it in theory will make it so every developer gains access to tools that previously would have been proprietary, that previously would only have been available to a select few studios who develop those cool technologies. Now they'd be readily accessible to everybody. The potential downside of all of this, though, which before we continue with this little video, I think it's important to note, when everybody, it's like a syndrome in The Incredibles. When everyone's super, nobody is. And I think when everybody has access to amazing tools through Unreal, it's like nobody does, because then they're no longer special. They're no longer cutting edge. And the danger, I think, is that a lot of games will start to look very similar. They'll start to play very similar. And, you know, it's like those indie games where you can tell an indie game that uses Unreal, where you can just tell, oh, that's the Unreal Engine model rig, and they're walking the same way as this character in this other game. And then these assets are from the Unreal Engine store because you can see them in this other game. They're used all over the place. So you can start to spot them everywhere you look, you know? And I think that could potentially also be a frustration, is a lot of games will start to kind of blend the lines between unique tools and unique technologies because it's all tying together. Why couldn't they have used the id Tech engine? I'm sure that was a consideration, but maybe they just found that for the projects they're looking at, it's not actually ideal, because the team that is now working on Halo, we know they've been working on a number of games, but like id Tech is really good at this thing. Like, they are really good at fast-paced first-person shooters. Really phenomenal engine for that. But if the Halo guys are looking at doing like massive multiplayer stuff, they're looking at having like 100 players in a server for some big thing. I don't know if that would, it's not really MMO, so just multiplayer online games. And then they also have the single player stuff they want to do. They want to do really big, ambitious single player games. So that could potentially be used here. That could totally work. So that's an option. Maybe there's some crossover here, but that's something they want to do. And then they also want to do other games that maybe scale through multiple generations, or they want to go over here and do this. Like, if they have all of these different ideas, but the id Tech engine is only capable of crossing a few of these, or like 1 or 2 or 3 of them, there's just not much reason. Whereas Unreal, the promise is that Unreal can do everything, and they don't need to bother developing it or anything. You know, that for them, I'm sure, is a real incentive.
Project was an effort to show ourselves how far we can push things using Unreal 5.
New studio art director Chris came to me, and
I love that tattoo, by the way. He's got the different dice on his neck. That's good. That's good. By the way, everybody, let me know in the chat. I'll be looking. Let me know if you're interested. I have some, like, I'm running this D&D campaign for my friends, and I have some things I want to do, but I kind of want like feedback on them. So I was thinking maybe I like pitch some of it to you guys on a stream at some point, and then you guys can vote on what happens to the party in this game I'm running for my friends. I think that could be interesting, just to be like, you guys choose their fates, you know? I think that could be fun.
And said, hey, I have this crazy idea.
He said, hey, there's this thing called Project Foundry that I want to do. Let's make it happen.
Foundry specifically
Project
is
Foundry.
Based around the same concept of the Foundry in Halo lore. It's the place where Halo rings are born.
Rendered in Unreal Engine 5. Yeah, you guys like that idea? Okay, we could do that.
Game is a research project for our studio so we can prepare ourselves for the next steps of making Halo games.
The original Halo franchise was a graphics showcase. It was best in class. That's what Halo was when it first was released, and that's what Halo needs to be again.
New Dawn. So I like some of the verbiage they're using. They're saying it used to be this. We need to be that again. It used to be like this. We need to get there again. That's what I would hope to hear, where they're looking at where were we and where are we now? Let's be honest with ourselves. And what do we need to do to achieve that same goal? What do we need to do to overcome how far we've fallen behind? Because Halo Infinite, I had fun with it. You know, clearly that was plagued with development issues, and they were roundly mocked for various things with the way some of the brutes looked. We've all seen the memes. So that's certainly a factor in all of this consideration. But I also find it really interesting that they've done this research project, as he alludes to, for the last couple of years to work on building out a vision for what the franchise would look like on Unreal. It's very interesting.
It's the place where Halo rings are born. It's not a game, it's a research project for our studio so we can prepare ourselves for the next steps of making Halo games.
Research project. Other studios have done similar stuff. Typically, they turn it into a game, though. So notably, like Skyrim Anniversary Edition, when they did that first like remaster thing, they said that was their way of training themselves for the new hardware, I think for Fallout 4. And so they developed that in like 2013, 14 while they were working on Fallout 4, understanding the new consoles and stuff. And then they just decided to release it and it printed money. And with this, it seems like they have taken the route of, we're going to spend a year, 2 years working in Unreal Engine, building out levels, understanding the tools, converting our whole processes over there, and getting where we need to be able to go into production on some big games using this tool set. Because again, it's not as simple as just moving over to a new engine as some people might think it is. Even like in what I do, where we do video production and stuff, like where I have a couple of editors I work with. If I go and I decide, okay, we're moving to whatever it is, DaVinci Resolve, or we're moving to Final Cut Pro from Premiere, which is what we use, the Adobe suite. All of our original assets that are built in After Effects, all of those original files or backed up footage or different things that we have, all the transitions we use, all of that now has to be like redone, or it has to be exported in a very particular way so it's compatible with the other software. There's many more hoops to jump through. And in the case of video game development, there are different files that are proprietary. In the case of video games, there's scripts that are proprietary. There could be unique things that were just very iconic to Halo that now will not work in Unreal, and they have to rebuild them. So they need to spend time doing that. So it's not as simple as like just flip a switch and go over to this. It's not like, oh, I was writing my paper in Google Docs and I'm going to copy and paste it into Word. It's not that simple. There's many, many more hoops to jump through with this type of thing. 2 years is still a crazy amount of time to be working on a research project, but maybe that was just, you know, some of the team was working on it for 2 years, others worked on it for 6 months, you know, I'm wondering.
The original Halo franchise was a graphics showcase. It was best in class. That's what Halo was when it first was released, and that's what Halo needs to be again.
Now, some people have looked at these clips and said they look like action figures. Part of that is because they are literally posed like action figures and they're not moving. I think in motion, it would feel different. I think there's also, like here, you can see the camera's panning in, so there's movement, but they're all frozen in place, so it is going to look a little bit like that. Also, just in terms of materials work, I do think that it would be interesting to see more mud on the armor, more dirt and grime and stuff. They are scratched up. You can see some scratches on some of the armor and things like that, but I do think that is leading to the sort of plastic feel, where everything is like too smooth and too clean. And I think maybe even some extra intensity on like ambient occlusion in some of these crevasses could help potentially, but yeah, like this, it's just very clean, very clean. There's some scuffs and stuff, but I think adding some dirt and wear and tear, increasing that could help. A New Dawn.
So once Project Foundry had been approved, we took the entire creative team and we ideated on 3 locations, something old, something new, and something really alien.
We had the Pacific Northwest, which is sort of traditional Halo biome.
We were trying to shove as much foliage in there as humanly possible to make it really feel like you're on a hike in the, Cascades.
The Coldlands, which was the second biome that we took on, it was more of a technical showcase where we could play with shaders, we could play with deformable landscapes and terrains. Unreal affords us more opportunity than we've ever had in the past.
On the surface, it might just look all like snow, but how many layers of things combine to really give that winter look?
And then
I will say, even just this, like, I'll play this back. Just look at the soft, billowing steam coming out of here. Just watch that. This is higher fidelity than I feel anything in Halo Infinite had.
Combine to really give
Look at
that winter look.
And then our third biome was
See, that looks good. That looks modern. That's where we need to be.
the Blightlands, which
Those
is
details.
any land that's been completely taken over by the flood.
I wanted to give our team the opportunity to really
Opportunity.
express an alien world, a really alien world.
His voice sounds a little dry. He might need a bottle of water.
The opportunity to really express an alien world, a really alien world, taking something way further than they may have actually done in previous Halo games.
What's impressed me about watching the Halo team work in Unreal is how beautiful everything looks, how incredible the environments look.
I will say it does look very good. I think also part of the thing is like, this was a problem with Halo Infinite. It's a problem with a lot of sci-fi games, honestly. It's just when things are this sort of smooth, metallic-y way, it's really easy for them to look, I don't know what the, like, again, plasticky, I guess is the term, where it looks too smooth, too perfect. It just doesn't seem real, because reality is defined by its imperfections. I mean, what makes photorealistic stuff seem photorealistic is that it is not perfect. You see strands of hair going off weird directions. You see pores of different sizes on somebody's skin. You see dirt or grime or little bits of trash on the ground, or you see twigs broken in the trees. That type of thing is what makes something feel really real. And here they've done a better job. This shot does a better job of it, where there is grunge, there is wear and tear. But this is sort of the where there's a crossover between art direction and the narrative direction, where I can understand some people might be like, well, Luke, that's just how these things are. You know, they are very resistant to rain or to weather, and so they would look smooth. They would look really crisp and clean. I get that. But it doesn't change the perception that people will have, which is that even though there's a reason they look like this, by their nature of looking this way, it seems too perfect. It seems too pristine. So maybe rework the narrative a little in a way where you can grunge it up like this, where you can make it look like it's been sitting out here in the elements for a little while. Have some rain, have some snow that's compacted onto it. You sit your car out on the driveway after a snowstorm, when the snow melts away, there's dust and dirt that was in the snow that's now compacted on this. I don't care if it's made of metal. I don't care if it has the ceramic, whatever weather coat on it to help it slough that stuff off. It will still be pretty dirty. And I know this is alien technology, but maybe like, because we live in a reality without alien technology, when we're trying to figure out what looks real, we need to see stuff from our lived experience, which is dirt. It's grime, you know? Having the perfect, sham-wowed appearance doesn't necessarily look real to humans, even if there's a narrative explanation for it. That's my point. But I do think that this angle, this shot, this looks very good. This looks very good.
I don't think we've seen anything quite like it in Unreal Engine before.
Fortunately, we have a studio that's really passionate about Halo, about the look and the feel, and I think there's a lot of hunger to really collaborate, to move forward together.
Foundry was an initiative that touched on every part of the creative process, everything from concept art, VFX, characters, vehicles, and weapons to make the future games of Halo.
creating an asset, taking this design, now we can really dig into material foundations. What is it actually made of? How is it physically accurate to the world? Now we get to take all the wonderful legacy assets that we have, bring them to life, and bring them to today's standards.
We are really excited to be not just working on multiple projects, but also expanding our studio.
As a lifelong Halo player, I think the game's only going to get better when we get those new, unique perspectives and people bring in their expertise and passion for the Halo franchise.
We are looking for new talent as the projects that we're working on kind of get further and further into their development cycles.
And it is great to be part of a team that's growing because you can kind of see that force multiplied as people come in and take on challenges and you can do more.
Imagine a place where you have the commitment that this is what we want to do, Halo games, and create those experiences. And you can express your talent, your creativity, and your professional ambitions in that place.
We're looking for designers, we're looking for artists, we're looking for engineers.
It feels like a new beginning for the studio in a lot of ways, and I think that's pretty rare.
And I think we arrived now at a point where you see the beginnings of people to start to believe in the process.
There's so much momentum that we have right now and focus and clarity on not just what we're building, but why we're building and kind of this next phase of Halo.
The worlds that we're building, the stories that we're going after.
The potential at Halo right now is huge.
Halo Infinite was the last remnants of how we made Halo games in the past. That was our recipe. And what we're doing right now, we're changing that recipe.
I mean, I think Halo fans are desperate for a fresh route because, like, even though I liked Infinite, how long did that take? That took how many years? How many years did that take? I would ask Apple Intelligence, but it's garbage, so that's not going to work. Let's see. How long did Halo Infinite take to make? Let's see. Let's see. So they started 2015, early 2016, working on what Bonnie Ross called Halo 5.5. I don't want hour counts. Halo 5 was 2015. It came out December 8th, 2021. It was intended to be a release title for the Series X, but it was delayed in August 2020 after its gameplay reveal in July of 2020 drew negative feedback from both critics and Halo fans. They did an open beta of the multiplayer. So it seems like maybe 5 to 6 years, which is a long time for a game like this. I mean, other companies are able to pump out first-person shooters every few years, but like that's a long time, especially when this is supposed to be one of Xbox's biggest franchises. You know, it's a long time. So it seems to me they're hoping that they're going to be able to crank this out. They're going to be able to build a big team that can make Halo into one of their big platform exclusives, potentially. I know some people are like, oh, well, Unreal Engine is really easy to develop on multiple platforms. That's right. Maybe that is part of the consideration. Maybe they are thinking, well, we can do this and then bring it to PlayStation 5 or 6 or whatever, and maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I think some of these franchises, I think you can bring to PlayStation 5 and people will kind of roll their eyes. Xbox fans will roll their eyes and go along with it. It's whatever. Like Sea of Thieves. I don't think anybody's like really freaking out that Sea of Thieves is on PlayStation. But I think if you brought Halo, which is Xbox, like that is as close to an Xbox brand as you could possibly be. Like Halo is Xbox. If you were to bring that to PlayStation, I think that would be a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. So I would not expect it to be cross-platform. And I think even the modern Xbox leadership, I think even they are aware of that. So I don't think so. But with this, I think their goal is to make a team that is easy to expand, and I think that they want to acquire as much talent as they can. This just kind of looks like the Human Sentai pad to me. This logo. I'm sorry, guys. I hate to be that guy. Doesn't kind of look like a guy laying. These are his arms. This is his head, kind of sticking his tongue out. This is his legs, his foot. It's presenting his butt. Doesn't it kind of look like that? Am I the only one? No? Okay. But like, I think the key thing here is they want to have a tool set that is cutting edge. They want to be accessible to a new group of devs. They need to get people excited, and they need to bring people in. I think that's the whole point. Well, now I see it. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. So I wish them the best of luck with it. Obviously, like, I want good Halo games again, and I'd like them more often than every 6 years. I mean, to see Halo go from what was at one time probably the biggest game release of the year, way back in the day when they would release a new Halo. It was huge. People would wait outside GameStops and Best Buys all night to get access to the new Halo day one. It was huge. And it's just fallen off as a result of mismanagement and poor development practices. And maybe, just maybe, this is the start of something fresh and new. What I will say is there's no concept put forward here other than technical prowess and graphics. That's like the main selling point here, which, to be fair, is the only thing they could really show at this point. They don't have a prototype. They don't have new gameplay systems. They don't have new enemy types. Like, they don't have anything like that to show. They've been just working on getting acclimated with a new set of tools, which is, again, fine. Like, that's where you would expect them to be at this point. But just because you can make pretty environments does not mean you can make a good game. That's the part that remains to be seen. I will say this gets me confident they won't have the problems they had with that 2020 gameplay reveal. In case you guys don't remember, let's see if we can find it. Halo Infinite, July 2020 gameplay reveal. 4 years ago. Is this it? July 2020. Yeah, people looked at this and they delayed it as a result. And like, it didn't look awful. It just didn't look like a modern day cutting edge game. Like, the foliage, there's no translucency with it. It's all just little stalks of like some sort of weird green fruit roll up. And you can see really bad pop-in and all sorts of stuff like that. Like, there were just a lot of problems with it, and it needed a lot more time. And then, yeah, these brutes, these are the guys that got memed into oblivion. People thought these looked really bad. So their hope is now they don't, yeah, that right there. This guy right here. Let me see if I can freeze frame it. Yeah, that's the viral shot. This right here. So hopefully now they don't have to deal with this. They don't have to bother with these issues. I will say, if they turned on motion blur, this probably never would have been a thing. Having it turned off, it stays so crisp from frame to frame that people could get this freeze frame and use it to freak out about. But motion blur would have fixed this, fam. Just saying. Just saying. But it doesn't look great. Doesn't look great, right? So I think Unreal Engine at least gets over this hurdle, potentially, if they can retain the graphical fidelity that they showed there. Still have to make a good game. That's a big part. But at the very least, this is a big weakness they had that they will potentially not have anymore. And not needing to spend so much time working on technical improvements to the engine to make it look better or run better, where that's all just on Epic. That hopefully speeds up production so they can get this stuff out faster and faster. And so you could have a new Halo game every few years instead of every 6 years or every 7 years, you know. And even then, it's not that big of a leap forward. So hopefully this is the start of something fresh and different. I wish them the best of luck And I mean, props to Xbox to give them a good amount of time to work on it. You know, that's good to see. This was paired with reporting from Tom Warren from a while back in June specifically, where Tom Warren, he's the senior editor over at The Verge. He said that he reported on this, you know, and also had some other stuff in his piece in June, where he said, one game that is being considered for release on PlayStation 5 is Halo, though. Sources tell me Microsoft is working on some form of Halo Combat Evolved Remastered that is also being considered for rival consoles. I don't expect Microsoft to announce this during the showcase, as it's early days for this remaster. I will say, if this ends up being true, if they do bring it, it would be truly, truly remarkable. Like how they have managed to just totally get confused at every step of the way with what their fans want and the proper treatment for it. It really is remarkable. It really, really is. Let's see this updated. Let's see some of the other stuff he said. Xbox chief Phil Spencer confirmed that both Starfield and Indiana Jones will be part of the initial 4 games. Project Latitude, Shattered Space, Diablo, Overwatch, South of Midnight. Just Halo. Give me just Halo. That's all I need. I think that's all he's got on Halo. Yeah. So, interesting if they do that. My stance is bringing Halo to PlayStation is a terrible idea. I think that is one way to just fully, like, forget exclusives full stop if you do that. Like, just go full publisher. At that point, I think Xbox literally means nothing. Put Starfield on PlayStation. I don't think anybody cares. I mean, all 13 fans will be either really upset or really happy to have more people playing it. But I don't think it's a big deal. Halo, though, Halo is Xbox. Like, it just is. Keep it on PC, keep it on Xbox, xCloud, all that, that's fine. But if you bring it to PlayStation, even a remaster or something of an old game, I still think that that's just such a bad look. It's just a bad look. I just don't think that's a good idea. But when has that ever stopped them before? Let's be perfectly honest. When has that ever stopped Xbox before? This seems like a terrible idea. We already did it. Sorry. Too late. I think the nostalgia is the one thing keeping the Halo series afloat. Yeah, I think it's certainly a big piece of it. I think it's a big piece of it. Yeah, perceptions are reality. Yep. Okay, let's see this. Let me catch up on these. Lots of super chats to catch up on. I'm sorry, guys. I fell behind while we were talking about that. I need to shift my life into Unreal Engine 5 as well. Yeah, me too, dude. I think everything would be better. Seems like everybody's doing it nowadays. Frank McCuskey, thank you for the 5. I'm so stoked Infinite had its problems, but clearly was a step in the right direction. This new team clearly understands the assignment. Halo is back. That's the hope. But again, like, we haven't seen anything about a new game. We've seen that graphics are going to be improved and their pipeline should be better. But we haven't seen anything in terms of like gameplay. So, Grandpa Eyebrows, thing for 2. Master Chief gender swap incoming. I don't think they would gender swap him. I do think, and you can take this to the bank, okay? I'm calling it now. Remind yourself of this in 5 years whenever we see the next one. I do think there will be missions where you are traveling through levels with a female sidekick, not Cortana or anything. Like, I think a female super soldier that goes through levels with you. I do think that will be a thing. I think they're going to do that. I don't think they'll do a full gender swap, but I do think that they'll start to have many more like main members of the cast be female. I do think that will be it. It will be Lawless. Yeah. Lawless will travel through Brainiac's portal into the world of Halo and will start lecturing you about how she needs to go Columbus something from the aliens. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Oh man, honestly, I'd play it. That'd be pretty funny. Can you imagine? That'd be so funny. So stupid, but so funny. Frank, thank you for the 10. Why do you think people are so obsessed with saying Halo is dead? It clearly isn't. It's so beloved. Halo Infinite was also well received, and the post-launch support has been better than any other Halo game. Part of it's just the memes. It gets a rise out of Halo fans, so PlayStation fans love to do it because it's kind of funny. So I think that's part of it. You know, in the same way people are like, yeah, well, you're saying all that. Like I saw the counter post where people are like, oh, Halo's player counts aren't that high. And then people counter it by showing pictures of the Concord player counts. And it's like, okay, well, I'll go sit down. You know, it's just memeing. It's just memeing. People are still playing Halo games. People want to play Halo games. And if they put out a good Halo game, people will play it, as they did with Infinite. They aren't still playing it as a live service multiplayer game because it just didn't have enough content to keep them engaged that long, at least for most people. But I think a lot of it's just the memes. Like, honestly, a lot of the time with this stuff, it's just to get a rise out of fans. Like, it's just people trying to milk each other for reactions. Let's be honest. Everybody's treating each other as lol cows at this point. So don't read much into it, I think. And thank you for the 5, Frank, as well. Infinite is the best selling FPS, the best feeling, not selling, best feeling FPS out there, and I'll die on this hill. Yeah, it depends on what you like. I used to really like the feeling of Call of Duty, and then they started doing the bunny hop thing and the slide canceling, and I just can't keep up with it anymore. I'm not. I guess I thought I had ADHD. I guess I don't have it potent enough to enjoy Call of Duty anymore. I just can't do it. The fancy filmmaker. Ooh, fancy. Thank you for the 2 thoughts on Alien Isolation 2 being announced. I mean, they say they're working on it. It's easy money if they do a good job, but again, there's just not much to say. They don't even have like, again, it's very early. They're just saying, hey, we're working on it, but there's not much to say about it. It's like, okay, cool. Show me when you got it. I'll talk about it when you got something to show, you know? Yeah, only real ones were here to witness Luke play Warzone. Yeah, nowadays, I don't know if I could do it again. Maybe we'll do that for like a members only video or stream or something where we go back to it. I don't know. Some of you only real OGs were here when we did. Was it Warzone or was it like Apex or something? It might have been. I think it was Warzone. There was one guy, one night we invited members from like people from the chat in to play with us. And there's one guy that was just drunk out of his mind who was just rambling the whole time we were playing. It was really, really awkward. I wish I had clips of that still, but that was very fun. That was very fun. That was a classic. Where else was I? Aiden, what is your podcast? I couldn't find any info. It is the Free Roam podcast. Free Roam podcast. You can see it on the Luke Stevens Live. If you go to live, it's all there. You know, once a week we do it with Joe Raptor. It's also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. Blake, thank you for the 10. I don't want to see new and unique perspectives in Halo. They've been doing that for 3 games now, and it was terrible. Go back to basics. They need to actually hire old Halo devs and not turn them down. That I do think is a valid point. I think specifically Halo veterans in positions of leadership, but old school Halo veterans, not like the last few games. We'll see. I mean, I'm optimistic that bringing in people who played Halo games when they were kids could be the right way to do it. Like, if you have fans making the game, maybe that's the best bet instead of old guys who are now in their 50s and 60s who are convinced they know what fans want, but they're out of touch. Maybe having fans of Halo building the next Halo game is the solution. I don't know, though. But time will tell. Again, like, there's just not much to go on this announcement other than it's going to be pretty. That's all we kind of have here. Thank you again for the 10 with that, Blake. Thank you. Frank, thank you for the 2. I'm all for Halo on PlayStation. The more, the merrier. It could certainly help with the multiplayer side of things, but I just think again, it is Xbox personified, and to take it to PlayStation, I just think is a, like, at that point, okay, just don't do exclusives. Everything day one, cross-platform, like, that's one where I think that is a bigger deal. People freaking out over these other games they brought, like Hi-Fi Rush or Sea of Thieves. I don't think that's a big deal, but Halo is a huge deal. You know, it'd be like porting The Last of Us and Jack and Daxter and Horizon to the Xbox. You know, it's just a weird choice. Like, yeah, you're going to get more copies sold, but I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just an odd choice. Yeah, God of War is probably a better example. Yeah. Lonely Fades, thing for the chew. Do you think Epic Games will build the metaverse? Depends what you mean with the metaverse. Not if Mark Zuckerberg has anything to do with it. What happened to him too? Have you seen him recently? Have you seen him recently? Dude, he's crazy. Mark Zuckerberg. This is him a few years ago. This is him like today. He's in his full like bro phase. What I find really funny is that he probably hired like a PR firm to dress him like this. And like it's worked. He looks more human now. I think a lot of it is that like he grew his hair out a little. He strengthened his like eyebrows or darkened them or something. Because he used to just not have eyebrows and it looked really uncanny. Videos of him on his wakeboard thing with a beer and the American flag. He apparently has bought up like half of one of the islands in Hawaii. Like he just owns the entire island because he didn't want people coming on his property or messing with him. It's like a little insane. But he just spends all day like surfing and stuff, which is funny. Anyway, he's probably the most insane transformation as a public persona I've seen recently. Because he used to be like actual android and now he looks kind of like a bro. You know, it's weird. It's really weird. Let's see. Frank, thank you for the 5 again. Jeez. I had a lot to say. Thanks for hearing me out. You're a great guy. Love the content and have a great one, dude. Glad to support you. Thank you, my friend. That's very nice of you to say. And we're glad to have you here. Thank you. Daniel, thank you for the 17 months. Hope you and the family are well. Keep up the amazing and genuine work. Did Space Marine 2 live up to your expectations? Yeah. The only thing I wish we had more of were more like unique boss fights. I wish we had more of those in the campaign. I do think post-launch support will be good, but if anything, like understanding what this game was, I think they did a phenomenal job. My only wish is there was more of it, which is a good problem to have after playing a game. If you want more, it means you liked what was there. So I hope this just greenlights Space Marine 3, and I'm sure it did. And with that, I hope that we just get crazy big budgets, crazy big set pieces. Honestly, my preference would be go into the next campaign single player. I don't need co-op for the campaign. Let me do co-op and multiplayer and all of that. But for the campaign, go single player and crank the dials in the encounters and set pieces and scale. You know, I just need you to go crazy because Warhammer's all about the scope and scale, and imagine what they could do if they weren't limited by that like co-op thing, which they've already been very open about. They said the co-op held them back in what they could do with the single player campaign, or the not single player with the campaign. So I think if they went full single player, it could be really cool. Okay. Yeah, shout out also Metaphor Refantasio. It's a certified classic. Atlas has done it again. It's apparently phenomenal, and people are eating it up. So worth checking out. Worth checking out. This very well could be one of the front runners for Game of the Year. So watch out. I think it's more niche. Not a lot of people might be familiar with it, but this game out of nowhere for a lot of people that just aren't usually in tune with this type of game, because again, it is more niche. It's more Persona-esque. They might not have been aware of it, but this thing could come in and steal Game of the Year right out from under, like Rebirth or Helldivers or something like that. So interesting. A rare IGN 9. Yeah, look at that. Dexerto, VG247, VGC, The Gamer, Eurogamer, GameSpot, Noisy Pixel, Shack News, Game Reactor UK, all gave it 10s. Wow. Bing, bang, boom. Bing, bang, boom. That's fantastic. Okay. 9s do exist. Yeah, we're all surprised. We're all surprised. Okay, also... YXolo, maybe? I'm not sure. Thank you for 6 months at tier 1 over on Twitch. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. Thank you. One Direction, Zuckerberg. Yeah, kind of. He does look like he belongs in a boy band. That's true. You got to take a look at the game yourself. Yeah, no, this is like, I love Persona. I like even sort of adjacent games like Fire Emblem 3 Houses, I ate up. It's just those games don't tend to do well in terms of videos on my channels, which is fine. It just means like this is one of those games I play for myself in my free time and don't make a lot of content on it. But honestly, I think it's good to have games like that when you're in a position like mine, because it's really easy when you do this for a living to just have the fun sucked out of it. Because anytime you want to play a game, you're like, okay, well, I have to record and I have to be taking notes and I got to talk about it on stream or in a review or this or that. It can be really, really nice to just play a game and not treat it like it's work, to just enjoy it. And that's what I think I'm going to do with Metaphor. It's going to be my guilty pleasure game, my relax game, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it. I'm going to be eating this fall with Metaphor and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Yeah, Dragon Ball also. I have those. Those reviews went up somewhere. Where did I put that tab? I thought I opened it. Maybe I didn't. I thought I did. Well, here it is. Yeah, the Dragon Ball Sparking Zero reviews are also out, and it's sitting in like the mid 80s. So bada bing, bada boom, right there. We'll have to tease Joe Raptor about this. There was one guy on the podcast in the comment section, in case you're not familiar and you don't watch the podcast, which you should, but in case you haven't, we've been memeing on Dragon Ball. Joe Raptor pretending like it's the most garbage game ever, and we're just joking around with it. I don't even remember how it started, but we just joke around with it, pretending like it's horrible. And there was one guy that thought we were being serious and like lost his mind. Like a bunch of comments hidden for review because they were so filled with profanity over it. Like, bro was upset. We're like, it's okay. We're just kidding. Like, what are you talking about? Dude was not okay. Dude was losing his mind. Oh man, it was pretty funny. But yeah, we do a little trolling. We do a little trolling. Just a little trolling. Okay, Jacob, here is one for you to clip real quick. Here's one we can clip real quick, okay? Okay. Where's my button? Okay. News segment. Who's at my door? Is it just the family? Are they just back home? What was that? Oh, political flyers. Naughty, naughty. It's an old lady dropping off political flyers underneath my doormat, even though I have a sign saying not to do that. Naughty, naughty old lady. I'm sorry, I didn't see the sign saying no solicitation or politics or religion. I just didn't read it, even though it's in bold. They do that all the time. We had a window. Do you want to hear real quick? We're about to talk about a company that's had troubles with branding. Let me tell you a story about another one real quick. We had a company come through our neighborhood. This is so slick and slimy. Okay, you ready for this? They came up to our door, this lady, and I wasn't home at the time, but my wife, Nikki, answered the door. And this guy, the first time it was a guy, second time it was a lady. So the first time the guy knocks on the door and he's like, well, so I just wanted to tell you, you guys have probably the nicest looking house on the street, and we run a window company, and we're just looking to get our foot in the door in this neighborhood. So what we'd like to offer you is a discount on window installation, where we'll basically do the windows at cost, but all we ask is that we put up a sign in your yard for 2 months that says we did your windows. Then people drive by, see your nice house, see the windows, and then they call us to have their windows done. Sort of like a way for us to do marketing. You get new windows out of it for very, very cheap. It's just an awesome deal. And my wife was like, well, you see the no soliciting sign, like, you still shouldn't be coming up to the door. It's like, yeah, well, it's just, it's not like a typical solicitation because we're offering you to do it at a discount because, again, you have such a nice house. We just would really like to be a part of the showcase of your house. So they plump you up with this. They're like, oh, your house is so nice. You should be proud of your house. We're going to give you a discount because your house is so nice. So they're making you feel really good about yourself, right? And then we look up this company, and they do this with everybody. I mean, they go up to anybody's house and they say, yeah, well, your house is just very, very nice. We'd like it to be part of our showcase thing. And then when they price it out, they start with the pricing extremely inflated and they discount it down to still more expensive than the competition, but they treat it like you're getting a deal because they're like, oh, we would have charged you 30 grand. We're only going to charge you 20 now. When in reality, it should probably only cost 10 to 15, but they make you feel like you're getting a really good deal. It was really, really slimy. And so the next time, a few days later, this lady came back and my wife had scheduled like, okay, we'll come back on Monday or whatever at I think it was like 3 p.m. to talk to me and my husband about it once he's back here from one of his work trips, and we can talk about it and you can kind of pitch us both. And they're like, okay, absolutely. Because they kept stressing, it's really important you're both there. It's really important that you and your husband are there. Like, okay, it's weird. One of us can make the decision. Like, what are you talking about? This lady showed up at our front door at 9:30 a.m. when the appointment was scheduled for like 3. And knocked. And I kept like hitting the message thing on the Ring doorbell app, leave a message, because I didn't know who she was. And she just leaves. She comes back like 2.5 hours later, knocks on the door at like 11:30. Same thing. Like, leave a message. And she leaves, doesn't leave a message. Same lady finally shows up at like 2:45 and is insistent. I'm just on a really tight turnaround. We just need to make a decision really, really quickly. And they've been calling my wife all throughout the day saying, well, we just need to meet early. We need to meet early because we're only going to do this with 2 houses in the neighborhood. And so it's really important that you make a decision as soon as possible because we're only going to do it to another house. And we already signed one. And so yours could be the second one, but you have to agree to it right now, this morning. So it's just really crucial we get in there and agree to this and sign the paperwork now so we can get going. And it's the most slimy thing I've ever seen, where they are trying to, for one, plump you up, making you think your house is so nice that you should be really proud of it. And also, we're going to make it even nicer. And the only reason you're getting this discount is because your house is so nice. That's basically what they're trying to do. And then it's so high pressure because they're like, we're only going to do this with 2 houses in the neighborhood. You're one of 2 houses in your whole neighborhood that's going to get this special access, this special thing. But we need to meet early. You were planning on having this meeting with us at 3. We're going to show up at your door at 9 a.m. and try to pressure you into signing the contract because someone else is interested as well. It was the most disgusting thing I've seen in a long time. So when the lady showed up at the house at like 2:45, we didn't have nice things to say to her. It was like, First of all, your salesman ignores our no solicitation sign. That already can get you in very deep water, as I'm sure you're aware. And we have you on recording acknowledging the sign when we're talking to you, and you didn't care. So right then and there, like, we already have grounds, because there's certain consumer protections in Colorado if you try to do that. And you have the sign saying no solicitation, and people still do it. So already you made a big F up right there. Then you're going to do this high pressure sales thing. We all know what you're doing. We can Google your company name and see it in Google reviews where other people are saying, my house, there was one lady, it was really funny. She's like, my house is not pretty at all. She's like, our lawn is overgrown, weeds galore. Nobody thinks our house is the nicest on the street. And they're coming up to us and telling us this to get us to do this window install with them. And even then, the pricing is outrageous. It's extremely expensive. And so, like, we read the reviews. We know what your deal is. We know how slimy this is. We're not interested. If we're going to do windows, we're going to do it through a reputable company who does it well and doesn't have to rely on such scummy sales tactics to get quick and easy sales. We're just not going to do it. And, you know, she, okay, and just turned down the driveway and left. But it's like she expected that reaction. It's like if you really did believe, like, no, this is an amazing deal, you do need this, let me just show you why, you think she'd give a little resistance. But the second she sensed that we were on to the grift and on to the scam, she just left. It was crazy. It was unbelievable. I had never seen somebody that aggressive with toxic sales tactics. It was stunning. I also tried to have somebody come out and quote me on solar panel installs for the roof. Because I was just interested. In Colorado, we have a bunch of state like tax incentives and like tax credits where they're much cheaper than they normally would be. I mean, as much as like 60-70% off. And with where I live, electricity costs are so high, it's like, oh, maybe that is an option. But this guy just straight up like repeatedly lied, because solar panels don't add value to your house. They just don't. They're not going to allow you to refi for more. When you sell your house, people often want them removed before they move in. Like, they do not add value to your house in Colorado where I live. They just don't. Brokers will tell you this no matter who you ask. And this guy was like, well, you just don't have the right broker and you just need to do it. He wanted me to spend $80,000 on solar panels. And he was saying, well, we just need the signature today. We just need it today. I was like, I don't impulsively spend $80,000. What are you talking about? Like, if you talk to anybody and they impulsively spend $80,000, they probably should not be in that position. Like, even the millionaires that I know would not spend $80,000 impulsively. And they've got plenty of change. For them, that's not that big of a deal. They're not spending that impulsively based on an afternoon sales pitch. Like, what? It was infuriating. It was infuriating. Because I told him, I was like, I know the sales tactics you're doing. I know I know how this works. I sold apartment buildings, multi-million-dollar apartment buildings, much higher stakes than an $80,000 solar setup. I was selling $5 million buildings, $10 million buildings we worked on. Like, I think you're out of your league here, dude. I know all the tricks you're playing. And when you're trying to tell me like, oh, well, this offer is only available this afternoon. You know damn well if I said tomorrow, I'll give you $80,000, you would make an exception for me because you want that money. Like, don't piss on my back and tell me it's raining. I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. That's the stupidest thing ever too with a lot of these guys. It's like, well, we just have to lock this in this afternoon. It's just, we have to do it this afternoon. Like, you know full well, if I call you tomorrow or in a week or 2 weeks, you're going to take the money because you want the sale. Like, you know, it's just, never heard that saying. It's like a Southern saying, I think. Don't piss on my back and tell me it's raining. I know what you're doing. You know, it's the whole thing. Okay, you ready for this? Anyway, enough about piss and rain. Okay. New segment in the daylight time. Ubisoft acknowledging recent buyout reports. La la la. Here we go. Did I just... Okay, I put everybody to sleep with that beautiful ballad. Everybody wake up. Let's get into it. Bieber, is that you? Might be. Might be. You never know. Might be. Here we go. Yeah, I just forget to turn off the auto-tune thing for the whole segment. We just do a whole segment through. Oh, man. That's funny. The Cocoa Bear, you give me $80,000. Joking, that's the first thing I heard joining the stream. Yeah, no, toxic salesmen and sales tactics. Tell you what, it's just, oh man, there's lots of things like that. I could go on, but I'm not going to. There was one time with a car dealership where the guy tried to pull a number of BS tactics, and it was just so stupid. And so I went back the next day just to troll him a little bit, which petty, sure, but yeah, it's a separate story. Anyway, Ubisoft has acknowledged recent buyout reports. Ubisoft has acknowledged recent buyout reports, saying it, quote, regularly reviews options, which is a little funny. They're like, no, this is very normal. We're always considering going private. Yeah, we are often doing this very desperate thing. They say, of course, in the last week's report from Bloomberg, where they discussed how the Guillemot family was considering a buyout from Tencent, that technically, that's like a little clunky. I get what they're saying, but technically what they were considering is pairing up with Tencent, and then they would buy out the rest of the company together. Because the Guillemot family, most of their wealth is in the Ubisoft stock. That's where a lot of it is, if not the vast majority of it. They aren't sitting on cash. So like what made Elon Musk able to buy Twitter was that he had all of these shares of Tesla worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. So he could sell off a lot of shares, and he could take out loans with those shares as collateral for the loans, which allows him to take out money tax-free at super low interest rates. So there's multiple ways he could have done it, but he had access to a lot of cash. The Guillemot family, they don't have access to a ton of cash. They just don't, okay? They have high like net worths based on the book value of the shares, but they aren't sitting on like huge cash piles or something. You know, a lot of people I think misunderstand what the term billionaire means. It just means you own stuff, you have assets worth that amount. Whether you could sell them and get that is a sort of separate issue. It's the old, you remember Corpse Bride, that movie from like 2005 or whatever with Tim Burton, where you have the two families, the fishmonger family, and then you have the aristocrat family that Johnny Depp is trying to marry into. The aristocratic family, they have multiple lines where they say, oh, we're land rich, but cash broke. It's because they own a lot of land. So on paper, they're aristocrats. They're extremely wealthy, but they don't actually have any money, because in order to get money, they'd have to sell off all the land that they hold, which is not how you retain your value, right? So in their case, they were like the Guillemot family. They were wealthy on paper, but they didn't actually have cash, whereas the fishmongers had tons of cash, even though they were not actually, according to the book value, like they were not as wealthy as the other family. Did you expect to hear a comparison to Corpse Bride in this segment? Bet you didn't, but that's what you get at Luke Stevens Live. They continue on with all of this. Ubisoft has now noted in a statement to Eurogamer, quote, Ubisoft has noted recent press speculation regarding potential interests around the company. It regularly reviews all its strategic options in the interest of its stakeholders and will inform the market if and when appropriate. Okay. The statement continues, the company reiterates that management is currently focused on executing its strategy centered on two core verticals, open world adventures and games as a service native experiences. Last week, Ubisoft stock increased over 30% due to recent rumors of a potential buyout. And as for if the buyout happens or not, and whether it will improve Ubisoft's standing in the games industry remains to be seen, but developers who spoke to Insider Gaming are understandably nervous about the future. My stance remains unchanged with this, okay? In my view, this doesn't, like a buyout, let's say Tencent, Ubisoft, or the Guillemot family, they come together, they buy out, Ubisoft take it private. presumably that means the Game On family stays in control. That doesn't fix anything. Ubisoft's problems are managerial. It's in terms of the vision, it's in terms of the direction they've taken the company, and some of these big creative choices that have been made. Being privately held, if anything, makes that worse. The only thing you could potentially see it do is like see a reduction in the number of live service games that are needed to boost revenues while they kind of rebuild. So you could see a temporary sort of refocusing on more pro-consumer games to build up public value and goodwill. But even that, like Tencent, they are like the kings of microtransactions and live service stuff. Like if they're taking over, I would not expect things to magically get like more pro-consumer. Maybe they do, because you're right, Tencent does have its hand in a lot of different little companies. They own little slivers of tons of companies. They even own, I think, a good chunk of From Software, don't they? Let's see. I'm pretty sure they do. I think it's them and PlayStation. Kanakoa. Where's the full breakdown? Maybe, no, that is the full breakdown. No, I'm mistaken. Oh, no, it is. It is. Okay, it's just labeled weird. It is Tencent. Tencent owns 16% of From Software. Sony owns 14%. And then the Kadakawa Corporation owns about 70% of From Software. So, like, they have their hands in a lot of pots. Some of the pots they own make amazing games. Some of the pots that they have their hand in make sort of mediocre games or live service games that print money. So it can go multiple different directions. But once Tencent owns a company, they tend to really pump out the live service stuff. They really, really do. Yeah, they have so many different projects. Riot Games, wholly owned. Sumo Group, they own that. Turtle Rock Studios. Fat Shark. Epic Games, they own 35% of Epic. They own 42% of Don't Nod. They own the majority of Techland. They own just under 10% of Ubisoft. That could change soon, though. Paradox, they own 10%. Like, they have their hands in so many pots, you probably don't even realize. Shift Up, they own 35% of that. Bluebird Team that just did Silent Hill remake. Silent Hill 2 remake. 22% they own of that. So they have their hands in a lot of games that make some good stuff. Whether they go, if they fully own a company, that's a separate issue. But Tencent's huge. Tencent is huge, okay? They're kind of the sleeping giant of the industry in many ways. But I don't think if they take over that magically things get better for Ubisoft. I think it will, if anything else, just empower them to continue making the same mistakes they did before. It's important to stress, as Tom Henderson says here, that Tencent and the Game On family are rumored to be considering the buyout. The buyout would undoubtedly mean mass layoffs, with Yves still likely in charge, who is ultimately responsible for Ubisoft's current state. It's still not brilliant news. The best case of, or best cause of action would be an upper management shakeup over anything IMO. But I don't trust or think that Yves will let the ship sail without him in the captain's seat. I think that's absolutely true. I think that's absolutely true. And the thing that is really important to understand about this whole thing is Tencent, Guillemot family. Let me see if I can find the original deal. I need the original announcement deal from, like, where's more tools anytime. I want it like from before. Yeah, here it is. So with this, there were all sorts of stipulations, okay? Yeah, the latest deal makes Tencent Ubisoft's single biggest shareholder with an overall stake of 11%, which can be further increased to as much as 17%. It also values the maker of Assassin's Creed and Tom Clancy's video game franchises at $10 billion, or around 80 euros per share, well above Tuesday's stock price closing level of 43.5. Tencent considers the value of AC and Tom Clancy at $10 billion. Ubisoft's current market cap is like 1.8 billion. And they're valuing it at 10 billion just for the franchise, which shows how little confidence there is in the management. They think the franchises under proper management, if they're run by people who know what they're doing, those franchises should be worth $10 billion on their own. And yet, the company's only worth a little under 2. You have to screw up pretty hard to have a valuation that off, right? Like, a way that you could say it is, think of it as like a box, okay? There's just a little box, okay? In the box, I tell you, there is $1,000 cash in here. If I'm really trustworthy, if you think that I am reliable, the price you would pay for this box is maybe $999. Because you're like, if it's $1,000 in there, I'd like to make a little bit of money for the risk of it maybe not being in there. But if you're super reliable, I'll pay you $999. But if I'm untrustworthy and I tell you there's $1,000 in this box, you're probably not going to pay $999. You might pay $800 or $600, depending on how likely you think it is that I'm being true or honest. In the case of Ubisoft, to just be one-to-one with this analogy, I tell you there's $1,000 in here, and you're only willing to give me $200 for it. You do not trust me at all if that's the offer you're willing to make to me, right? Like you think the odds are pretty damn high. I'm lying, and that there's nothing good in here, that I'm not reliable. And that's where Ubisoft is right now. They're telling you there's $1,000 in here, and you're only willing to, like, investors are only willing to give them $200. That's crazy. That's crazy, but that's what we're dealing with. That's how low the confidence level is in the Guillemot family leadership. The move also caps a difficult 4-year period at Ubisoft where there has been a succession of new game delays and sexual harassment allegations that led to a revamp of top management. The firm's share price has dropped in that time from about 100 euros to less than 44. Today, it trades at like 13, 14 after the speculation of a buyout. Prior to that, it was trading as low as 9 euros. That's how far it fell off since this article was written in September of 2022. China's largest social network and gaming firm, whose investment in Guillemot Brothers amounts to 300 million euros, $296 million, also has the right to raise its direct stake in Ubisoft to 9.99% from 4.5%, which they eventually did. So they now own 9.99%. This is also interesting. This is why, to their credit, the Guillemot family were smart with this. As part of this agreement, I think Ubisoft knew that there was a potential for the stock price to drop even further, which is why they did this. They did this deal with Tencent ahead of time to try and lock them up, because look what they did. This is as of 2022. Okay, so this was back then. Tencent will not be able to sell its shares for 5 years, beyond which the Guillemot family will have a preemptive right to buy the shares. So if they ever want to dump them, the Guillemot family gets to buy them up first to retain control. It's also said that Tencent pledged not to increase its direct stake in the French games maker beyond 9.99% in capital for a period of 8 years. This is why it was kind of brilliant with this, okay? Because they The only way that they could do this deal with Ubisoft and gain control of it is if the Guillemot family partnered with them and basically let them out of this clause and voided it out. Then they could do it. But the Guillemot family has to be okay with it. So Tencent's salivating because, again, they consider just AC and Tom Clancy, they consider those franchises worth $10 billion. And they're looking at Ubisoft right now and they're saying, we could get the entire company for, if we partner with the Guillemot family, for $1 billion. 50-50 partners. We could get the whole thing for $1 billion. That's a 90% discount. That's a great deal. But the only way they can do it is if the Guillemot family is on board. And this creates this weird mix where the Guillemot family needs Tencent and Tencent needs the Guillemot family. And they both have parts of it that they like. They both have like reasons they like it. The Guillemot family, they like that they would retain control of the company, presumably. But the Tencent side of things, they're like, well, we got to make money and you're not making money as things are. So you need to change some stuff. You need to make some major changes. And they probably want the Guillemot family to leave management. They might be like, you can still own it, but you need to leave and put other people in charge, which I think would be good. But then Yves Guillemot is like, well, I do not want to leave. I want to stay in power. That was like weirdly German. I'm sorry. You get what I mean, though. He wants to stay in his position of leadership. He doesn't want to give it up. So now they're just like fighting each other and they don't know what to do. But there's not many options. I mean, they can't wait 8 years. Tencent can't. Ubisoft, if it keeps going the way it is, it won't be around in 8 years. At least not in its current form. Tencent, which bought its first 5% of Ubisoft for 66 euros per share in 2018, is also providing the Guillemot family's holding firm with a long-term loan to refinance its debt. The Guillemot family, they're tight with Ubisoft, or with Tencent. Tencent has basically been providing them low-interest debt for the last 6 years to refinance different things that they've done. They're pretty buddy-buddy. The deal structure does not seem to be a change to the long-standing strategic partnership between the two firms, said Matthew Canterman, Director of Research at Ball Metaverse Research Partners. Quote, overall, it's a bet by Tencent that Ubisoft can improve its execution and unlock value in its catalog of IP. The pair can create new mobile games based on that IP, and they can bring existing Ubisoft titles into China once the regulatory climate improves. The deal will likely help Tencent offset pressure in its home market, where the gaming regulator has not granted any new game licenses to Tencent since June last year. This is the reason Tencent has gone elsewhere. It's weird. You might not realize it if you live in the West, but Tencent relies on different Chinese regulatory bodies to give them basically licenses. You know, when you go like hunting in the US and you need to get a license or a tag for like an elk, if you're going to hunt an elk, or a deer if you're going to hunt a deer, and then you can pursue that and capture it and then you're good. In China, like, it works a similar way, sort of, with the gaming side of things. If you want to make a video game, you have to get a license to make a video game. And if you don't get a license granted, you can't do it. It's really weird. But that's why they have all this money and they're just going elsewhere and they're buying stakes in different companies. So they're not technically making more games. They just get a cut of the pie every time another company makes a game that's good. It's very weird. Overall revenue in the world's biggest video game market declined for the first time in January to June, a report showed, as it continued to reel from increasing government oversight. China began intense scrutiny of its high-growth tech sector around 2 years ago, in part alarmed by what regulators called, quote, disorderly expansion of capital caused by acquisition sprees. True. So, with all of this, the point is Tencent and Ubisoft are simpatico. They are buddy-buddy, and Tencent is the cash cow that can dig Ubisoft out of the troubles that they are in. But in order to do that, Tencent is going to want major changes made. Part of Tencent's whole goal was for Ubisoft to unlock power and value in its brands. And in the last few years, they've actually ruined a lot of the goodwill and value of those brands. I would say the value of the AC brand after the AC Shadows debacle is potentially at an all-time low, which is remarkable to be in this position. AC for a long time was like guaranteed, you know, every time it's announced, it's going to pop off. Now it's like considered cringe and uncool to a whole new level. Which I guess for the culture war guys, maybe this is really good news, because Tencent, all they care about is the money. And if they come in and they tell Guillemot, the Guillemot family, like, no, all of those like different teams you have for increasing the political correctness of your games or whatever, all those people are fired. You're going to do this way. We're going to do booty shorts on all the playable characters. That's what we're doing. If Tencent wanted to come in and do that, Tencent could. They have that bargaining power if they wanted to make major changes. And the Guillemot family, it seems like they care mostly about control. They don't really care that much about the brands. They don't care that much about the employees. They don't care that much about all this other stuff. They primarily want to retain control of Ubisoft. So if they can do that, and all they have to do is go and kind of rework their strategic outlook, I think they'd rather do that than lose control. So time will tell. Time will tell. But you might be in a spot where you get games that are less PC and games, but games that are more monetized. So you get like a much more aggressive in-game store, but you won't have the same like stereotypical Ubisoft art direction and stuff. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Ubisoft is at a weird spot right now. Anybody who's like, they're going bankrupt, literally doesn't know what the word bankrupt means if they think that. Bankruptcy tends to be directly tied with cash flows, with how money is managed within a firm. And Ubisoft right now, they have severe problems, but they are not in a spot where they're not taking cash in. They are. It's just, I think they have too many employees for one. And they have a lot of projects that have just been in development hell and are going nowhere that frankly should be reworked as far as I'm concerned. But nothing that's like you can't dig yourself out of. There's investors that say Ubisoft should be about half the size it is now. They should have about 10,000 employees for the amount of money they make, which is crazy. But that's another thing, is if Tencent takes them over, there's a decent sized chance that Tencent comes in and says, okay, you gotta cut like half your workforce. Like, you thought the layoffs in like Microsoft were bad. You thought the layoffs with this company or that company were bad. Investors are saying, some investors are saying that Ubisoft should cut 10,000 jobs. And you think Tencent is going to be like, well, no, we'll give them really nice severance packages. No. Tencent are like, they're some of the most cutthroat of the cutthroat of the cutthroat. Okay. Like, there's a reason Tencent is like the number 2 gaming company on earth in terms of revenue. Okay. They do not mess around. That's why they're making a deal with the devil right now in a lot of ways. Okay. Like, anybody who thinks that this is like not that big of a deal, it is. It really is. Who's number one? Number one is PlayStation, then I believe Tencent, and then Xbox / Microsoft. Specifically after the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And then like 4th place is Nintendo with like $11 billion in annual revenue. Whereas Microsoft is at like 25 or something, or 22 or 23. Like, Nintendo is at half of what 3rd place is. It's wild. How long until Tencent makes their own console? I don't think they need to. I don't think it would make money. Like, there's no reason to do that. Why make your own console when you can just make mobile games? Everybody has phones, don't you? You know? Embracer Group's way down there. Embracer Group is at like 3 billion or something. It's not one of the tops. Ubi have 19K staff. That is absolutely insane. 10K layoffs is conservative. Yeah, it's a lot of it is they have a lot of huge studios. They have a lot of very like pro worker policies. So like, they just recently announced, I think like a week ago, that they're going back to 3-day work in office, 2-day work from home. Up until like a few weeks ago, it was 2 days in the office, 3 days working from home. which you start to understand why they might be having productivity issues. But they've gotten to a point where they haven't done like major downsizing or layoffs in a very, very long time. So they have a lot of teams, a lot of positions, a lot of studios and projects that frankly should have been cut a long time ago, according to investors. And so they just have a lot of bloat. Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole thing. So anyway, there's lots of insanity. I'm surprised EA hasn't fallen this hard. EA's financials are really good. That's one thing people like. Ubisoft's financials are fine. There's some like debt. I think that they value their goodwill way too high. I think they value their brands too high for what they're currently capable of doing. So there's problems with their books that I have. But on the flip side, there's also things like EA, they have all the sports games, frankly, which is a big part of it. Apex also, but they print money and they have really healthy financials. A lot of money comes in, a lot of money goes out, but a lot of money comes in. And so EA is just very, very financially healthy, which, you know, you might not play mobile games, which is fine, but you know, it's just, they're a well-managed company in terms of finances, at least. Valve is the GOAT of financially healthy. Yeah, they make more money per employee than I think any privately held tech company that we know of. Like, they make so much money with so few employees, it's ridiculous. It's insane. You know, whereas Ubisoft, they have a ton of employees and they make billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars quarterly, but probably not as much money as they should be with that number of employees compared to their peers. So anyway, let me catch up on these real quick. Fell behind. Let's see. Grandpa Eyebrows, thank you for the 2. You playing Sparking Zero or Silent Hill Remake? Currently Silent Hill 2 Remake. Tenacious Beagle, what do you think the chances are of the Hogwarts Legacy Director's Cut coming out February 2025, 2 years after the initial release? Could be a nice send-off. Yeah, I think that would be an easy W. I just don't know what is included in a Director's Cut. You know, like what all are they going to do with that? I don't know, but they've got Rocksteady working on it, so hopefully improved like facial animations and lots of good stuff. Let's see. Odin, thank you for 19 months. Ooh, baby, indeed. That's fantastic. Thank you, my friend. Eterne 24, thank you for the membership as well. Astro Tutor, thank you for the super chat. If Tencent was in control and over monetized their content, would Western audiences reject Ubisoft even more? If Tencent came over monetized, I think if Ceteris Paribus, all else equal, yes. If Tencent buys them out and they keep doing the same thing as they've always done for the last however many years, and it's just more monetized, then yeah, I think people will reject them even more. If Tencent comes in and says, we're making all of these changes, and then we're also going to improve monetization over here, then there's a potential, like, people will throw fits, sure. But if the games start to get better and they have in-game stores, then I think people might be more willing to go along with it. My statement has been for a long time that I think they should reevaluate how to gain goodwill and like credit with the gaming community. They should take a very pro-consumer approach with things and then start to get more aggressive with monetization. Once they've got that goodwill, then, you know, you can do in-game stores and stuff. But cut all that out for now. Focus on good games, win people over to your games based on the quality of the games, and then consider all the monetization secondarily. It seems like now, though, it's flipped. And so long as they're doing that, I think that they're going to just continue to be in trouble. Let's see. Sumaya, thank you for that. Reminds me of another French guy who tried to stay in power. He was in AC Unity. Don't want to be that guy. Sure don't. The lack of self-awareness with Ubisoft is crazy. But yeah, I think that's just the big problem. I see some people joking Valve should just buy Ubisoft. Again, like, I don't think the Guillemot family is going to go down without a fight. Like, they do not want to leave power. They want to stay at the top of that company. And no matter what the offer is, I think that they are going to fight tooth and nail to stay in position. And that's why I don't have a lot of confidence. And that's why a lot of investors don't have a lot of confidence. Because they're like, we can't boot Guillemot out even if we want to. There's nothing we can do. Alejandro, thank you for that 5. What Elder Scrolls numbered entry do you think we'd be at if Bethesda didn't keep re-releasing Skyrim for 10 years? We'd still be waiting for 6. Apparently they use the re-releases as training within the studio for newbies, so that's why they kind of just pump them out like that. It's just a training exercise that they sell, which is kind of funny. I mean, imagine any other job you've ever worked where they're like, oh, you're a new hire? Here, come and fill out this paperwork to learn how to do your job. You do that, and then they sell that to their customers. It's bizarre, but that's what they do. Brandon, thank you for that. Video game economics and business aside, how are you doing, Luke? What you been playing lately? Thank you, Brandon. I've been playing through The Witcher 3 Hearts of Stone DLC. Last night, booted up Silent Hill 2 remake. I'm excited to start Metaphor Refantasio privately in my free time. Excited to go through that. Is there anything else? What else? I've been waiting to go back to Black Myth Wukong because I ran into some problems with hitching in a boss fight. That was driving me crazy. What else? I don't know. Overwatch with my wife and brothers every once in a while. We'll play that at night. That's a good time. Yeah. What does live ops mean? Found 2 Hogwarts Legacy job listings that with that term. Yeah, I found those too. It basically it's a catch-all term for just live operations, or sometimes they'll say live opportunities. It kind of depends on who you ask, but usually live operations. It's just the term for a game that has active updates and active improvements. Sometimes it can mean live service. Sometimes. Other times, live ops just means regular updates. We're going to be doing patches. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing that. So it doesn't always mean live service. It doesn't mean like games as a service where they're trying to just milk you for money with constant updates and stuff. So it's a catch-all term. Like all live service games or games as a service are live ops and include many live ops, but not all live ops are games as a service. Does that make sense? So it's a tricky term. Gontro Dim with 2 Hearts of Stone. You've garnered my attention. That's awesome. Do. Oh man, Gontro Dim, what a Chad. That's great. That's great. It's him. He's here. Oh God, he's back. Speaking of someone who's back, should we talk about this? I really do need just like a dead horse in this studio for me to just pound whenever we talk about this stuff, because it's just too easy. Okay. Where is it? Do you guys remember the name of the guy that a lot of people tease and point at as being the reason that Starfield is terrible? Not Todd. Praise be. Praise be to Todd. Not Todd. Todd, you know, he's a separate thing entirely. Emil. Yeah, Emil is somebody people point to a lot. Well, he's come out and talked about Starfield, which is interesting. Okay. Let's look at it. Bethesda Game Studios' big 3 RPGs are now Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and Starfield. I don't think RPG is the right term, but whatever. Starfield is simply developing its own unique fan base. Starfield has its own unique personality and now sits right next to Fallout and Elder Scrolls. Oh man, okay. A Bethesda Game Studios veteran reckons the company's big 3 tentpole games now include Starfield, which is, quote, simply developing its own unique fan base. Speaking to Games Radar, ahead of Starfield's Shattered Space expansion, design director Emil Pagliarulo said that the studio's sci-fi mammoth, quote, has its own unique personality and now sits next to Fallout and Elder Scrolls. Starfield's changes to the Bethesda formula definitely inspired lots of heated debate, let's say, but Pagliarulo thinks it still fits right in with what the studio is famed for. Quote, it exists in a unique space, he explained. It might not be everybody's cup of tea. What is? We created a new IP from the ground up and an experience that is absolutely unique on consoles. And I'm not saying Starfield is better or worse than any other game, just different in what we offer. That weird Bethesda blend of immersion, action, and RPG. I have thoughts, but just a minute. Pagliarulo still acknowledges that Starfield is, quote, also different than Bethesda's other RPGs. Skyrim's open world exploration is now scattered across hundreds of procedurally generated planets, for example, but it turns out that's also what's helped it draw in a different crowd. Starfield is simply developing its own unique fan base. It's big and it's growing. Pagliarulo explained, Bethesda used to feel like the studio of Elder Scrolls. Then it was the studio you'd associate with Elder Scrolls and Fallout. Now it's Elder Scrolls, Fallout, and Starfield. Bethesda Game Studios is big 3. Director Todd Howard had previously hinted at big plans for Starfield's future with, quote, annual story expansions potentially coming for a very long time. And Pagliarulo now added that it's just the beginning. If they do more expansions like Shattered Space, we'll see how that goes. Because if you're not familiar, if you're not familiar with the reviews, boop-a-doop-boo-doop-boo. That's what that is right there. A big old juicy. But yeah, I'm sure all these people rushed through it too, right? I made that tweet where I described when I finished it. I was like, yeah, I accidentally finished it in an afternoon. Accidentally, because I thought there was going to be so much more. I was like, I'll play it this afternoon. Tomorrow I'll film a video like halfway through the expansion or whatever. And no, it just ended. Like I accidentally finished it early because it was so short. But no, like that's the whole game. And people accuse me of rushing it and that my opinion was invalid because I played it and said it was short. And look where we are now. Look where we are now. Shattered Space is a boring and disappointing add-on. Wow. It's just bad. So yeah, keep doing annual expansions like this, man. Come on. So here's the deal. Okay, I get it. Emil Pagliarulo, if you don't know him, he initially started blowing up when he did a talk. You can actually see on YouTube if you type in Emil Pagliarulo. If you get Emil Pagl, at least for me, speech is the second topic. And this is because there's videos, specifically this one, where he did, I think this is the whole talk. Yeah. This was at Infinite, which is like a developer conference. And he basically gave a speech about the design philosophy and the approach that Bethesda has with stories. This is all the way back 8 years ago in 2016 after Fallout 4, when he's talking about their approach to making games there. And there's a couple of really interesting tidbits here. You know, let me see if I can reviews here. Just listen to this. Does this not tell you everything you need to know about Starfield? Just listen to this.
Mark of being a real, that's not the end of being a video game developer, because the true mark of being a real developer is, as every developer knows, is waiting for reviews to come in, right?
It cut out, but waiting for reviews to come in.
And then reading the reviews, of course, and hopefully, if you get lucky, ignoring the reviews, right? Thank you very much, guys.
That's how he finished his speech. The mark of every developer is waiting for the reviews. reading the reviews, and he shows a guy curled up in a ball, and then ignoring the reviews, hopefully ignoring the reviews.
Right. And then reading the reviews, of course, and hopefully, if you get lucky, ignoring the reviews.
If that does not perfectly explain what's wrong with Bethesda Game Studios, I don't know what will. It's like a joke, but it's a joke that reveals the attitude. Like, this is supposed to be funny. Like, yeah, we ignore the reviews. That's what people have been saying you're doing, and you're like joking about it. But I don't think he's joking. I think this is one of those jokes that's like, it's funny because it's true. It's one of those. You know? And I think it's because Maddie, in his review of Shattered Space, he said on his Twitter post, he was like, how is this an answer to the criticisms of the base game? It's not. Because they didn't read the criticisms of the base game. They're not interested in the criticisms of the base game. They are happy with how it turned out based on their standards, and they don't feel the need to change anything. I thought there were signs they were changing some stuff, like, oh, the city maps or the rover. They added that stuff. That seems to be a response to criticism. Maybe they actually will answer that criticism in Shattered Space. But Shattered Space demonstrated very clearly that they're just totally not interested in responding to critiques or criticism. They will keep doing whatever they want to do. So Emil, after this speech, kind of started going around. They, in various ways, people started taking clips of it and talking about all of this. And it was specifically in terms of the writing, where he was like, this right here. This is a really good segment that explains again why the writing in Bethesda games have taken a nosedive since he's taken over. Just listen to this. Oh wait, I muted it.
And on, let's say, okay, we're going to write the great American novel. It's going to be this thick. And on every page will be written comedy and tragedy, and it'll be wonderful. It'll be amazing. And you're going to give this book, this great American novel, to the player. And what are they going to do with it? They're going to rip out every page and make paper airplanes out of them. And they're going to throw them around the room. And they're never going to see your story. Because the story is there, right? But they are going to spend 30 hours making shacks. Okay? They're going to spend 20 hours looking for bobbleheads. Okay? But that's okay. We know that going in. That's the jagged pill that we swallow when we do this. Because
can you start to understand why maybe the focus is not like much less on the writing? Because a lot of people are just going to ignore it. Why spend all that extra time improving the writing and hiring amazing writers and working on that if some people are just going to dick around and not try it, you know?
Because again, great games are played, not made, and a story in a video game is an interactive thing. And so we know that, and we're comfortable with that. And so for us, we know that the greatest players, the greatest characters in our games are the players themselves, and it's their stories that are important. It's this gal, it's this guy, you know, it's these folks right here. This is who we're making the game for. Yeah, it's amazing. And so
the speech is interesting. I recommend you look it up. It's, again, you can see the title right here. Talks from Story, Emil Pagliarulo, writer and lead designer of Fallout 4 and Skyrim. Because he tends to give his speech in a very descriptive way. Not a prescriptive way, but like a very descriptive way. Where he will make observations about the studio's process. Or he'll make the... he'll make an observation about how, you know, the reviews are going to come in and then you'll cry about the reviews because it's inferred not going to be overwhelmingly good, but you can ignore it. Like, he'll make jokes about that. He'll make observations like we're going to try to write an amazing story, but a lot of players are going to ignore it. But he doesn't really go anywhere after that. He just says it and then says, and we're comfortable with that. And then he moves on. So I encourage you to watch the whole thing. But I think the main takeaway is that it gives you a little glimpse into their attitude and approach and how they view not just their fans, but also the games industry in general. And it creates a very unhealthy, in my opinion, development environment where they're not trying to develop a game that's critically acclaimed or that reviews well, which some people would be like, yeah, that's good because games journalists suck. Okay, fine, whatever. But in general, when a game is critically acclaimed by reviewers, it tends to also be pretty good. There's an occasional exception where maybe it's like critically acclaimed, but it's garbage. But in general, if the broad consensus of reviewers is that a game is amazing, it tends to be amazing, right? Which is why you can have pre-launch reviews for like Baldur's Gate, where it's getting all these 10 out of 10 reviews, and then everybody plays it and like, oh yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 game. Might even be 11 out of 10. So there might be individual exceptions, like IGN reviewed it poorly when it's really good, or reviewed it really well when it's really bad. There's individual examples we could point to, but the point is when the consensus across the industry is that a game is amazing, it tends to be amazing. So the attitude of ignore the reviews is a dangerous one to hold, in my opinion. I think that that's a very slippery slope, and it gets you into a spot where you're at now, where it seems like BGS has gotten reviews that critique various parts of the game, and there is no acknowledgement, no discussion of it whatsoever, which is worrisome for future projects. And you hear other things where you can start to see the foundation being laid mentally for a disregard of certain things, or a willingness to maybe quickly gloss over certain elements. Why spend all this time writing a really intense quest line if players are just going to ignore the prompts, if players aren't going to read the story prompts on the computer, if players aren't going to maybe ever see the quest at all? Like, he's just describing that a lot of players are going to skip over that. And you could see the foundation being laid for the excuses of why to just not put that much effort into it. And now we see kind of I think the late stage effects of this philosophy that were outlined in this speech in 2016. And you know what? I saw a really good video from the old guys that did The Know. You know, let's see. Let me see if I can find the individual clip I'm thinking of. Yeah, here it is. So these guys run Inside Games. This used to be The Know, if you remember that show. But these guys are OGs. They've been around forever. And I saw this clip the other day, and I thought that it actually put into words very well a piece of the Bethesda puzzle, specifically what Lawrence here says about Skyrim and Bethesda in general. So let's see if my memory serves me right, if I found the right.
I think that the gaming populace has finally developed taste, and I think Skyrim is unintentionally campy. Like, it's very self-serious, but it ends up being really stupid when a bunch of people with silly voices recite all this kind of bad writing to you, but that makes it good. Meanwhile, like, once it gets out of the camp layer, it just becomes boring. It has to be worse or way, way, way better. And then it lands in Bethesda territory, but just in the middle where it's trying to be a decent game that's fun, not working, sorry.
And I heard him say that. I was like, oh my God, he's right. Part of the thing with Bethesda is that their games are clunky and campy and they don't always work that well, but that's part of it. You know, when you're talking about quality with Bethesda games, there's a spectrum with every game. You know, you have the masterpieces like here, which is like Baldur's Gate 3, where it's just phenomenal. The writing's amazing, gameplay's great. There's that. And then on the flip side, you have just total dumpster fires. The game doesn't work at all, like The Day Before, right? Looks like PB, but The Day Before. Okay, so you have other games over here that are just total disasters. There's basically not a game there at all. And Bethesda's stuff kind of fits into a little area in here, which is like the camp zone, where you can have games that maybe are not like the most profoundly amazing in terms of production value, writing quality, gameplay quality, but they're campy and they're just junk food fun games. And that's kind of where a lot of these games land. Like you could have a Skyrim land in here, or you could have Fallout 4, or maybe Fallout 3 is the better example. And these are successful in these areas because they fit into the vibe and they're not trying to step out of what BGS is capable of. You know, they're campy, silly, kind of stupid games. What he's saying is that once these games try to step out of that boundary of the campy realm, because it seems like BGS is not aware of the reality that they don't actually make like industry leading games. They don't actually make critically acclaimed games, at least like they used to. Even Skyrim was kind of accidentally, it seems, critically acclaimed. But what I think happened is after Skyrim, BGS was like, we made Game of the Year. We made a cultural phenomenon. So with Fallout, we need to go in that vein too and go and create the next really impactful game. And it kind of landed like out here, where the writing wasn't actually that great. Or rather, maybe I should say they were pushing for right here, but they actually slipped out over here and got like Fallout 4, where it wasn't aware that it needed to be campy, and it was accidentally like they were trying to be really serious and intense and potent and powerful, but it just comes off weird and the writing isn't very good, and so it just doesn't land right. And same thing with Starfield. Like they were trying to go over here, they were trying to make something really amazing and impactful. They were talking about how it could be the game of the generation, whatever, and it ended up being, you know, over here. And they're just not aware that they need to land in this campy box, and that it shouldn't be like this really intense, masterful, serious thing. They're not on that same level as even like CDPR or Larian and you know, those players that are making graphically amazing games that are cinematically very impressive, that have amazing writing and really intense, impressive gameplay. They're just not there. And so instead of staying kind of in their lane where they can dominate against companies like Obsidian or companies that are making those sort of AA and lesser AAA style games, they just overstep and try a little too hard to get into this far area to compete with these guys. And once you get into competition with Baldur's Gate, once you get into competition with The Witcher or with Star Citizen or other space sim games like No Man's Sky, you just get shot right back down. But BGS is kind of unaware of the joke that's been played on them. Because again, I just think that this is very, very accurate. I'll let him say it again.
It's really interesting. That doesn't mean I want to play Starfield. Man. I think that I think that the gaming populace has finally developed taste. And I think Skyrim is unintentionally campy. Like it's very self-serious, but it ends up being really stupid when a bunch of people with silly voices recite all this kind of bad writing to you, but that makes it good. Meanwhile, like once it gets out of the camp layer, it just becomes boring. It has to be worse or way, way, way better. And then it lands in Bethesda territory, but just in the middle where it's trying to be a decent game that's fun, not working, sorry.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's exactly right. And I think the little observation at the start, kind of half jokingly, I think the gaming populace has finally developed taste. I do think to a certain extent the sentiment there is true. I think that gamers used to put up with a lot more camp, so long as it was just stupid fun. Nowadays, gamers expect fun, but if it's stupid fun, they need it at a discount. And if it's going to be like kind of crappy writing, if it's going to be clunky gameplay, if it's going to be technologically inferior to the competition with constant load screens and bugs and glitches and stuff, then, you know, you're just not playing in the same realm. And I think that that's the biggest thing is compared to the peers, Starfield falls way, way short. If they could be reviewed or looked at in a vacuum, yeah, it probably would be like received better, but I just don't think you can do that. As for comparing it to Starfield compared to Fallout and Elder Scrolls, I think that is wishful thinking. I think, you know, if they announce that they're making Starfield 2, I think that trailer doesn't do particularly well. But if they released a trailer for Fallout 5, that blows up. What does he mean by camp? Like dumb fun? Yeah, I mean, it's like a campy horror movie where it's like the writing's kind of bad, and it's like, why would the characters do that? You kind of turn your brain off. You're like, oh, because it's a stupid horror movie. Like, they're just being stupid. You know, you can hand wave away a lot of stuff when something is campy. It's just part of the fun. It's like, yeah, it's stupid, but it's not that big of a deal because it knows what it is. It's not taking itself too seriously. And that's the key. But the problem for Starfield, and I think Fallout 4 as well to a lesser extent, is that these games take themselves very, very seriously when they haven't really earned the right to do that. And so they take themselves super seriously, which raises the expectation. And then people with raised expectations play these games and are like, okay, they're not that impressive. Like, there's a lot of problems here. And then BGS just sticks their fingers in their ears and go, la, 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 la. We had more concurrent players than ever. Biggest launch ever. Yes, we're on Game Pass. Ignore that fact. But yeah, we're super successful. And nothing improves. So Red Dead 2 is campy? No. Oh, because there's camps? Is that what you mean? Maybe. Yeah, I guess in that standard. No, Red Dead's an example of a game that takes itself very seriously in its narrative. And it earned the right because it is so well written, so well made, so well produced. I think campy games were much more common back in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, and it was more tolerable. I think people put up with it and thought it was fun. But the industry is so competitive now, and there's so many amazing options out there, especially on the AAA side of things, that campy, silly, kind of clunky games are just not anywhere near as acceptable as they used to be. But BGS is kind of, I think it's not in on the joke. Yeah, there's good campy and bad campy. Yeah, I think like Fallout 3, Skyrim, those are like good campy. Like they just don't take themselves too seriously, intentionally or not, but they are still just fun. And I've called them for years, I call them junk food games. It's like popcorn at the movie theater. It's not going to fill you up or anything, but it's still something that you enjoy popping in your mouth. You'll still be hungry afterwards. There was no real substance there, but you're still glad that you had it and that you enjoyed it. I think with Starfield, though, Starfield is like a frozen TV dinner that thinks it's a filet mignon steak. That's my problem with it. Well, there's lots of problems with it, but I think that in the same vein is a problem with Starfield, is that it just doesn't know what it is. Mr. Beard, thank you for the super chat. Love your videos, man. Keep it up. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Will do. Free Roam podcast fan, heard the Alien Isolation 2 confirmed today. Yeah, they're working on it. We'll see if that ever sees the light of day. I'm hopeful. Hopefully they have more to show soon. Gonturo Dim, the man, the myth, the legend, is here as well. Thoughts on Will Shen leaving based on present state of Bethesda? I suspect he's probably the only reason Starfield quests were as good as they were. Yeah, his absence, I think, was felt in the expansion pretty clearly. I do have his talk pulled up. He gave this talk 2 months ago. For those of you not familiar, this is Will Shen. He worked on all of these games, and he left Bethesda after Starfield. He also was in a lot of the development videos. I remember we saw one of the development videos where he was in, and I said, he just looks like he gives good hugs. You know, he just has that vibe. And I didn't realize he left after the game came out, but he did. And he gave this talk with another developer named Daryl Brigner. And it's very, very interesting. I don't think we have time to go through it today because it's an hour long, and so me looking at this is going to take 2 hours, but maybe on stream like tomorrow or Wednesday, if I stream tomorrow, maybe we do it there. Because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in this talk, and it reveals a lot of the inner workings of Bethesda, a lot of stuff that maybe Todd's not like super happy about being revealed, but that's a separate thing. It's a separate thing. Anyway, I disagree with Emil. I don't think you should consider Starfield on the same level as Fallout and Elder Scrolls. I think Starfield maybe eventually gets to that level after a sequel or two, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And my fear for BGS, as an old school fan of them that really enjoyed their old stuff, I just don't think they are looking at themselves critically or at their releases critically. I don't think they're trying to learn from any mistakes that have or haven't been made. I think they are convinced that their farts smell like roses and that they can do no wrong because they had high player counts on Game Pass, and so they're happy with it. And so long as they do that, I just don't think anything will change. Okay. But good question, Gunter, with Will Shen. We are going to do a reaction to that, but I think we'll wait a day or two. Toxic positivity. I think that's part of it. And then I think on the flip side, it's also that they get a lot of, it can be tough to decipher good faith criticisms and bad faith criticisms. Bad faith ones can sometimes still be accurate, but they're not really useful. Not much reason to take it in. Like people saying that Ghost of Yotei is garbage and it looks horrible. Then you look at the person's Twitter account and it's like, oh, they're just upset that there's a female protagonist. Okay, I'm not going to take their critiques that seriously. Maybe they're right. Maybe there are problems with like the gameplay that they were pointing out. Maybe they're right, but they're right for the wrong reasons, you know? And so there's people like that are critiquing stuff, and so people don't take it super seriously. On the flip side, there's people who I think do critique in good faith. I would like to think that we critique on this channel in good faith. But then on the, you know, if we say something like, hey, I think, what would be something? Like, I think AC Shadows, the animations when they're vaulting over stuff, I think it looks really out of place for like a very small character like Nawe to be doing these heavy lumbering jumps that are copy and pasted from Valhalla. I think that just looks weird. I could see developers hand waving that away and just being like, well, that's probably like a bad faith critique, so we're not going to take it seriously. So let's just all talk about how great the game is and ignore the critiques because they're arguing in bad faith. It kind of gives you an ability to hand wave stuff away as people just being haters if they critique stuff. And then only listening to the positive reception because you don't have to hand wave that away. You don't have to pretend like that's from haters. On the internal side of development, you know, even before something's announced and put out for feedback, I think there can certainly be an environment of toxic, quote unquote, toxic positivity where there's no serious like evaluation, or as we've talked about a lot, there's no questions of, does the audience even want this? Like, do our customers even want this? Like, that's a huge thing that should be asked in any video game during the development process. Is this feature something people want? Is this game something people want? Is this story something our fans will connect with? And it's not something that's ever really brought up. You know, even with like The Last of Us Part 2, I've said many times, I think that game is profound in many ways, but I think that game would have been much more powerful and effective at communicating its message if it were in a different IP with different characters. I understand why they did it with Joel and Ellie the way that they did, but I think that it immediately turned off so many people that they could have impacted a lot more people with the message they were trying to share if they had done it with a different IP. I think that chapter of The Last of Us story just didn't need to be told. I think that game just didn't need to be made. And I would have preferred if they left the story with that chapter unwritten. Let us fill in the blanks. So I think there's that. As for What were we on? The toxic positivity stuff. Yeah, I just think like Concord is a great example of just nobody ever looking at that game critically and saying, who's gonna buy this? Like, who actually wants this? If they had asked that at any point, they would have canceled it. At any point, but they didn't. Or with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. We've looked at the new playable character, Lawless, and it doesn't make any sense how anybody would greenlight that in the modern gaming marketplace. No gamer would find this person to be slay or badass. Nobody that's playing video games, that is. Maybe you could find 5 people that are like, yeah, she's not the worst. Nobody's like chanting, you know, that's amazing. She's fun to play at least. I don't even think that's true though. I tried her. She just kind of rolls through the air. Like, she's not even fun to play in terms of movement. Maybe against somebody that can't, like, is stationary just on the ground. But compared to other like DLC characters like Joker, for example, Joker plays much more fun than she does. So yeah, I don't know. Lawless sweep. Compared Cyberpunk 1.0 versus Starfield's today version. Okay. What do you mean? I think the implication is that the 1.0 launch version of Cyberpunk is worse than the modern version of Starfield, and I would agree. Congratulations. Like, good job. Yep. I'm like, yeah, yes, sure is. That's why when we talk about Cyberpunk, we always are referring to the 2.0 relaunch and Phantom Liberty version. Like, that game should never have launched the way that it was. Everybody will agree with you on that. That game was not ready for launch. But is the modern version of Cyberpunk way better than the modern version of Starfield? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Anyway, where are we? Let's see. I saw that one. Oh yeah, Alien Isolation. We saw that one. Red Bandit, thank you for that. What do you think if The Witcher 4 comes out the same year as Elder Scrolls 6? I think the odds are pretty high. It's close to the same release window. And if that happens, I think it's going to make Elder Scrolls 6 look real rough. Because again, Fallout 4 only started to really get beaten up in public discourse once people started comparing it to The Witcher 3, when the Game of the Year nominations and stuff started coming out. And then the writing side-by-sides, the role-playing side-by-sides, all of that started to make Fallout 4 look like a really bad RPG. Because again, I think Fallout 4 was marketed incorrectly. I don't think Bethesda makes good RPGs. I think they make fun sandbox games, but they aren't RPGs really. Certainly, like, I don't think Starfield fits into the definition of a role-playing game. Hardly at all. I mean, everybody's kind of railroaded the same way through a lot of these quest lines. And any ethical dilemmas are so shallow, they're basically meaningless. So I think, you know, the comparison is what makes the games look particularly bad. And for Starfield launching right next to Phantom Liberty, I think that was part of it. That was brought up a lot. So releasing next to an Unreal Engine version of The Witcher, graphically, it's going to be night and day in terms of detail levels, fidelity, just in general production value. I think it's going to be night and day. So I think BGS should be aware that that's going to happen if they're compared. 2 fantasy games launched next to each other. One that's going to have the power of CDPR and Epic Games behind it versus BGS and the Creation Engine 3.0. Like, I don't think that goes well. Let's see, where else was I? Yeah, skill trees equals RPG. That's the way now. Yeah, that's all they mean by it. House of Haas, thank you also for resubbing over on Twitch. 3 months. Ooh, baby. Love that. Love that for us. Let's see. Manfish Meldrum, thank you for the 5. I'm feeling quite hungry for a Luke Kingdom Come Deliverance playthrough, leading through up to the second game. Jesus Christ be praised. Jesus Christ be praised. Dude, I've had the itch. I actually installed it the other night. I haven't booted it up because I'm like, okay, I've got to finish some of these other games. But Yeah, I'm feeling the urge. That might be my like December playthrough, or maybe January when January's slow. I'm going to the Bahamas in January for like 2 weeks. It's going to be a whole thing. I think I'll be able to stream. I might just buy like I guess question for people in chat. We've got like 1,500 people in here or whatever. But like real question, has anybody used Starlink? You know, the Elon Musk satellite thing for internet? Can you buy one of those discs in the US and then like bring it in your luggage and use it for internet when you're somewhere that doesn't have like good internet or cell reception and stuff? Is that something you can do? I would not count on it. Are you asking for a friend? I mean, what I'm thinking of is like, we're not going to the middle of nowhere. It's in the Bahamas, but like they have internet. I just don't know if it's going to be good. And I don't know what the cell service is like. Because I'd still like to be able to stream or talk about stuff while we're there. You know, people have been like, Luke, you're on vacation. Why are you making videos or stream clips or whatever? I'm like, because I enjoy this. Like, this is what I do for fun. Like, I look forward to streams because we get to talk about video games for hours on end. Like this is, for me, is really, really fun. It doesn't feel like work or anything. I did this for like 2-3 years. Many of you were here for it before we were technically profitable and making money on this channel. This was hemorrhaging money for a very, very long time. But like, I enjoy it. This is how I kind of relax and reset. So I would like to be able to still do streams and talk about games while we're in the Bahamas, but I don't know if the internet infrastructure will be there. So I was like, ooh, if that Starlink disc thing works, then maybe I just bring that. You know, maybe that's the solution. Just enjoy your vacation, you workaholic. Oh, man. Let's see, hack into the mainframe. I could do that too. Yeah, you can. Oh, it's the little disc. People do it on cruises too. Oh yeah, don't cruises have like insane internet connectivity fees? It's like $10 a day or something stupid like that. I guess that would make sense. If you're gonna go on a cruise, just bring the little whatever disc and then do it yourself. That's not a bad idea. You get good download, not good upload. For like an hour, it's like $10. Really? Ugh. Yeah, we could do a hot tub stream in the Bahamas. Be great. It'd be great. Oh man, maybe we do that. Maybe we do that. Anyway, we'll figure that out. That's not till January, but yeah, I figure we should do a big like trip, relax in January, because next year is going to be so insane. It's going to be chaos. Most viewed video watch. Yeah, I'll bring the Todd Howard cardboard cutout. We'll make it a whole bit. We'll do that. Let's see. Women in games preposterous. Am I right, gamers? ... Just kidding. Just kidding indeed. Thank you for the 5, Edgar. Yeah, it's... I think at this point, it's gotten to the point where some of those types of people were like super emboldened by the failures of games like Concord or Suicide Squad or some of these games like Forspoken. Because they were right. Like those games were absolute garbage. But then they don't really know when to stop. And you get something like Ghost of Yotei, which looks really good. Or GTA 6, which looks really good. And it seems like the main playable character in that game will be... whatever her name is, Lucia, is that Lucia? What was her name? GTA 6's protagonist. They've said it. Lucia, that's who it is? Okay. So like those games look really good. So clearly it like having a female protagonist does not make the game bad. It's all the other crap that those games did that made them really bad. But I think some people just don't want to entertain the nuance to it, you know. But that's fine. That's fine. It's a separate issue. It's a separate issue. Lucia. Lucia? You mean Lucia? Lucia. I love Lucia. She's so good. Like Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption. Okay, let's look at this. New segment. From Joel Raptor, the one and only. Something interesting is happening with Sony's PC strategy. I want to hear your thoughts on this in chat, because I have a couple of thoughts, but I still just find it fascinating. I find it really, really interesting. He says the sequels of their single player games are doing significantly worse than the originals that come to PC. So God of War 2018, when it came to Steam, it launched with 73,000 peak concurrent players. God of War Ragnarok launched with 35,000. Horizon Zero Dawn launched with 56,000 concurrent players when it launched on Steam. Forbidden West launched with 40,000. Spidey 2 and The Last of Us 2 will also likely do less when they come to PC. There was already a huge difference between Spider-Man Remastered at 66,000 and Miles Morales, all the way down at 13,000 concurrent players. Curious if the strategy they are doing with Ghost, a new main character, will break this trend. Ghost of Tsushima's Director's Cut was the most successful PlayStation PC game to date, with 77,000 concurrent players, and the best-selling game in May of 2024 in the US. While the live service PlayStation games may be day one on PC, there is no plan to change the current strategy for single-player games. You would think that happens one day, ... That is, given the performance of these ports. Why do you guys think the performance of the second entries has been so much worse? You would think that a lot of the people would pop over after trying the original God of War 2018 on PC, would pop over and try Ragnarok. Or would they tried Horizon Zero Dawn, they'd pop over and try Forbidden West. Maybe there's a little fall off from the first game in terms of performance. And granted, these are concurrent numbers. We don't know total sales. Maybe it's that people are buying these, they're just not feeling the pressure to play them immediately. But you would think if it's like an exciting release, there would still be a lot of interest. And these are peak concurrents, not just, you know, within the first day or whatever. I think it's a very fascinating occurrence, because like God of War's fall off is pretty remarkable. Now, a couple things that have happened since the first games launched. The only thing I can really think of is the PlayStation login requirement, where you have to log into your PlayStation Network account. That is a requirement I don't think applied when God of War 2018 came to Steam or when Horizon Zero Dawn came to Steam. So that could be part of it. Maybe that's enough of a turnoff for Steam players that they actually are not buying it. I would find that surprising. Personally, like I would just find that surprising. Just because I think to me, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but it very well could be that that's a huge deal, enough for the game to perform like half as well on launch compared to the original game. I'm not sure. You can't make an account in 100+ countries, right? Yeah, but the countries, like, not to diminish anybody's, you know, country of origin or whatever, the countries are not like big bastions of gaming purchases, like Somalia and Iran. Like those countries are not responsible for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of copies of these games. You know, I just don't think they are. I don't think that accounts for a whole lot. You can't even make an account in the UK. You need ID. What do you mean ID? A government ID to make a PlayStation Network account? Hold on. You need a government ID to make a PSN account in the UK? PSN account, UK, government ID. What in the hell? Recreating this post previous time might be confusing. Interesting. If you go to the PlayStation website, try to create an account for the UK, you'll be asked for your mobile number /photo/ID. If you go to via the link in Discord FAQ for direct account creation, it doesn't ask for anything at all. What? So that's got to be some law in the UK. Is that true of other countries, like in the EU or anything? Or is that just UK? Is that EU entirely, or is that the UK? Just UK, as far as I know. In Germany, here we don't need that. Okay. That's crazy. I didn't know you guys had to provide your ID when creating an account like this. Yeah, look at that. Wow. This guy made a short recording to show people what it's like. Create an account, create. UK, next. Day, month. Okay. 1990, next. Verify your age to get the most out of your experience. Mobile number. Third-party website. Facial ID scan. Or an ID scan. You can use your driving license, passport, or ID card. Bro. Yeah, and PlayStation's been hacked many, many times. You're going to send them your passport and ID? What? Okay, yeah. I mean, that's a big deal. If I was like, hey, I want to get this game, and it's just a quick login, and then it was like, okay, it's asking me for my ID and my passport, I'd be like, I'd probably go, and at that point go through Steam support and request a refund, because I think that is a little crazy. Granted, I don't live in the UK, so maybe in the UK that's very normal. I mean, I guess for those of you in the UK, would you say that that's like normal? So you're used to it when you create an account and it's not that big of a deal? Or is that not normal and that's bizarre? No, it's not normal at all. Okay. So like that makes a lot of sense. If we're seeing precipitous fallout through the UK, if they're requiring freaking passports, like that's crazy. The law is new. Let me see. Does anybody know the name of the law? Anybody that lives in the UK? Is that like a new thing? UK law requires ID online account. Let's see. This article burns my eyes. I'm sorry, guys. Online age verification is coming and privacy is on the chopping block. Numerous states and countries are exploring age verification requirements for the internet, either as an implicit demand or formal rule. In the U.S., laws like the Child's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, already apply special rules to people under 13. I mean, in the US, it's basically they just tell you can't have an account if you're under 13. So kids under 13 just make accounts pretending they're like 80 years old. So it's not really a big thing. Let's see. Age verification systems fall into a handful of categories. The most common option is to rely on a third party that knows your identity by directly validating a credit card or government issued ID, for example, or by signing up for digital intermediary like Allpass Trust, the service Louisianians must use for porn access. So if you live in Louisiana, you have to go through a government like ID thing to get access to porn. Really? That's crazy. More experimentally, there are solutions that estimate a user's age without an ID. One potential option, which is already used by Facebook and Instagram, would use the camera and facial recognition to guess whether you're 18. Another, which is highlighted as a potential age verification solution by France's National Commission on Informatics and Liberty, could guess your age based on your online activity. That's weird. There's a lot of these laws, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. This is a petition through the parliament.uk. So this is like an official petition through the UK Parliament. Make verified ID a requirement for opening a social media account. Make it a legal requirement when opening a new social media account to provide a verified form of ID where the account belongs to a person under the age of 18. Verify the account with the ID of parent or guardian to prevent anonymized harmful activity, providing traceability if an offense occurs. This is the part that's crazy. If you do something offensive through your PSN account, they'd be able to track you because they have your ID in your passport. So like, you tell somebody to Roblox themselves in a group chat when playing on a game through the PSN, you can get a knock on your door. That's crazy. 600, almost 700,000 signatures. Look at that. Wow. Are there any territories or areas that nobody signed? It'd be funny if there's just one county where they're like, go screw yourself. No way. Not. Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. Who knew? Who knew, man? Who knew? So that very well could be part of it. I mean, I had no idea that was a thing with the PSN in the UK. I did not know that was a thing. That's wild. So that could certainly be part of it. There also, I think, you know, just globally, I don't think just the UK is enough to account for all of this difference, but that certainly is, it reaffirms the idea that the PSN requirement is doing a good amount of harm for these games. And for seemingly no benefit. Like, that's what's even crazier about the PSN requirement. It's like, what does Sony get out of it? An email address? They can tell investors that they have a little bit. Like, I just, like, they can tell investors, oh, we got some new signups. I just don't understand why they would do all of this. Yeah, Dude 404 says they will probably drop their own store and then think about doing day one drops probably. Yeah, I think all of this, maybe that's the point with the PSN at the end of the day. They are revving up to do their own launcher. And when they do their own launcher, they'll take games, like maybe it comes to Steam 6 months after, a year after, kind of like Ubisoft has done for years with Assassin's Creed and other stuff, where they launch it on Ubisoft Connect and then they bring it to Steam later. But I think PlayStation's revving up to do their own launcher, and maybe these games come day one on PC, but only through the PlayStation launcher, where the games will be full price, of course. Certainly need a PSN account, and maybe they can do cross progress and stuff like that, which could be cool, but I think that's what they're revving up for pretty clearly. I don't think PlayStation is happy about paying 30% to Valve. And what's the current CEO of PlayStation known for? What's his obsession? He's known for margins, for enhancing margins. That's his whole thing. He's the CFO. He's like, that's his bread and butter, is increasing margins. And I think that his main thing is going to be finding every way to do that. One of the easiest ways, make a launcher and stop paying Steam 30%. Definitely think that's what they're doing. 1000%. Yeah, here's your free skin. Link your account to collect. Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be even more than that. It's going to be, if you want to play at all, connect your account. You have to have an account. Wow, that's crazy. Okay. Grandpa Eyebrows, thank you for the 10. When I play games, I imagine myself as whatever character I'm playing. It's hard to put myself in the shoes of the character when they're a woman as a man. I have played many great games with a woman main character, though. Some people are like that. My wife, she doesn't really like playing games typically that have male protagonists. She likes playing role-playing games where she can make a protagonist that looks like her, and she can kind of role play through that. But there are exceptions. She played through all of The Witcher 3, for example. So if the game's really good, she'll do it. But yeah, there's certainly players like that. I'm thinking of the 5. Texas only requires Pornhub for ID, but other sites are just fine. That's crazy. I'm sure the second that law passed, they saw a huge uptick of VPN sales and usage, I bet. Seth, thank you for the 10. Thoughts on something Wicked Games studio developers and writers from Far Harbor and Bethesda have left to join? Thanks. Yeah, Seth, I think we'll talk about that a lot more probably Wednesday when we do a react to this talk from Will Shen, the guys that like formed that studio. And yeah, we'll dig into that because I do think it's really interesting, and I hope they figure their stuff out because I do think that these are some of the most talented people that were at BGS and they've left together to go form this company. So I do think that it's something to keep an eye on. I definitely think so. So we'll look at that. We'll look at that. We just don't really have time to do it today. But thank you for the super chat. We will check it out though. Quinn, thank you for the 12. What's your take on Ubisoft being in talks with Tencent for a possible takeover? I didn't think it could get any worse. Luckily, I shorted Ubisoft. They make mobile games filled with microtransactions. Yeah, Quinn, we looked at it again earlier in the stream, and we've done a couple segments on it in live stream clips. All told, like, I know some people are like, oh, well, maybe this is the solution. I don't think it's the solution because I think the whole point is that the Guillemot family partners with Tencent to buy out the company, take it private, and then the Guillemot family stays in control. My whole problem with Ubisoft is the Guillemot family. I don't think they're capable of running the company pretty clearly. So being private, having less accountability to shareholders and stakeholders, how does that make the company better? I mean, I just don't think it does. A clip from this stream will go up in about 10 minutes. Oh, so Jacob's already on it. Boom. About Ubisoft and the buyout and whatnot. See, Jacob's on it. Jacob's on it. So that'll go up. Did you do a review on Wukong? No, I didn't get or do any like review or, get any review codes or anything. It just wasn't on our docket. I was traveling at the time. So I would have been trying to play it in a hotel room and it just wouldn't have worked. So I didn't do anything official with reviews or anything. But very good. Very good. Certainly has some problems. It's the connective tissue that's the tricky bit. Like the boss fights are great. It's the stuff you do between the boss fights where it's just kind of like meh. Sparking 0 in 3 hours. I think we'll force Joe Raptor to play it. I think that's what we got to do. Yeah. Back in the day we would have mentioned Embracer buying them. Yeah, and they would have if they could have. They got $2 billion from or they were going to from the Saudi Arabian government investment fund. So yeah. Anywho, what we're going to do, guys, I've got to hop off and finish a video for later today. So I'm going to do that. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Lynx Rogue also for subbing with Prime. You guys are amazing for all of the amazing support and watching and subscribing and watching the clips and all that stuff. You guys are fantastic. And I love the gosh darn heck out of all of you. Okay. Much love. I'll be back either tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm not really sure what tomorrow holds, but I'll be back soon and we'll keep hanging out and having a great time. Okay, everybody? Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Much love. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.